I still remember the weight of his gaze across the crowded bar, how it pinned me in place when our eyes met. What was supposed to be a meaningless encounter to forget my ex turned into something I couldn't escape, even if I wanted to. The package arrived 3 days later, a black velvet box containing a delicate silver collar and a note with just 5 words. What would you do if a stranger offered you the key to your deepest desires? Subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories that explore the boundaries of passion and surrender. Just one drink, I told myself as I navigated through the Friday night crowd toward him. My heartbeat quickened with each step. He wore a charcoal suit that fit him perfectly, the kind of tailoring that whispered money without shouting it. No tie, top button undone. Deliberate, casual elegance. When I reached him, he pulled out the bar stool beside his own without a word, as if he'd been saving it for me all along. "I'm Elise," I said, settling onto the seat, suddenly conscious of my black dress that now felt too tight, too revealing. "James." His voice was deep, slightly rough, like expensive whiskey. "What are you drinking?" "Whatever you recommend." A slight smile touched his lips. "Trusting. Only with cocktails," I countered, trying to ignore the heat rising to my cheeks. He ordered something with bourbon that I didn't catch. When it arrived, he watched as I took my first sip. "Good?" he asked. I nodded, the liquor warming my throat. "Very. I like watching people experience things I've chosen for them." There was nothing overtly sexual about his words, yet heat pulled low in my belly. "Do you always get what you want?" "Usually." He took a sip of his own drink. "But only when it's freely given." We talked about nothing important. Jobs. He was in finance. I worked in publishing. The city. The unseasonably warm weather. Surface conversation that barely masked the current running beneath. His eyes never left mine, not even when the bartender came to refresh our drinks. Not even when Megan texted to check if I was okay. I wasn't okay. I was burning up. "You're still wearing it," he said suddenly, nodding toward my left hand. I twisted the simple silver band on my ring finger. It wasn't an engagement ring, just a promise. I slipped it off and dropped it into my purse. A broken one, recent, today. James nodded slowly. "So this is distraction. Is that a problem?" "It depends," he said, "on what you want from tonight." I took a breath, feeling reckless. "To forget, just for a few hours. I can help with that." He leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear. "But I should warn you, I'm not gentle." A shiver ran through me. I didn't ask for gentle. "Come home with me." It wasn't a question, but I heard the invitation in it. The choice. "One night," I said firmly. "Nothing more." "One night," he agreed. His apartment, or rather, his penthouse, was exactly what I expected. Minimalist, expensive, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Art on the walls that probably cost more than my annual salary. A place designed to impress. "Drink," he offered, moving to a bar cart. I shook my head. "I'm clear-headed enough to know what I'm doing." His eyes darkened. "And what is it you think you're doing, Elise?" "Making a bad decision I won't regret." I stepped closer to him. "But there are things you should know. I don't like pain. I'm not looking for a relationship. And I'll be gone before morning. Understood?" He closed the distance between us. "Now my terms. I'm in control tonight. You'll do as I say, and if you don't like something, you'll tell me immediately. I won't hurt you, but I will push you. Is that acceptable?" I swallowed hard. "Yes, good." He lifted his hand to my face, not quite touching. "May I?" That small request for permission sent a surprising thrill through me. I nodded. His fingers traced my jawline, tilting my face up. "You're beautiful when you're uncertain." Before I could respond, he stepped back. "Take off your shoes." I blinked. "What? Your shoes?" "Take them off." Slowly, I slipped off my heels, immediately feeling smaller, more vulnerable. "Now come here." I padded across the hardwood floor until I stood before him again. "Close your eyes." I hesitated only a moment before complying. Darkness enveloped me, heightening every other sense's cologne. The distant sounds of the city below, my own rapid breathing. "Keep them closed," he murmured. I felt him circle behind me, not touching, just moving. Then his hand at the nape of my neck, gathering my hair gently. "You have beautiful hair." His lips brushed my exposed neck, so lightly I might have imagined. I shivered, fighting the urge to lean back against him. "Tell me what you want, Elise." My voice faltered. "I want you to kiss me." "Where?" Heat flooded my face. My lips turn around. I did, eyes still closed. "Open your eyes. I want you to see me when I kiss you." When I looked up at him, the intensity in his gaze almost made me step back. He cupped my face in his hands, thumbs brushing my cheeks. Then he lowered his mouth to mine. The kiss wasn't gentle. It was possession, claiming, demanding. His tongue swept into my mouth, and I yielded without hesitation. One of his hands moved to the small of my back, pressing me against him, while the other tangled in my hair. I moaned into his mouth, my hands clutching at his shoulders. He walked me backward until I felt the wall behind me, then pinned me there with his body. "Put your hands above your head," he said against my lips. I complied without thinking, raising my arms. He captured my wrists in one hand, holding them against the wall as his mouth moved to my neck, teeth grazing the sensitive skin there. His free hand slid down my side, over my hip, gathering the fabric of my dress upward. "Tell me to stop, and I will," he murmured against my throat. "Don't stop," I whispered. What followed was unlike anything I'd experienced before. James didn't just have sex with me, he orchestrated every moment, every sensation. He told me exactly what to do, where to move, when I could speak. And something in me responded to his control, surrendered to it willingly. In my bedroom at home, there was a small mirror on the dresser, angled just so you could see the bed from certain positions. Daniel had always turned it away, embarrassed. James positioned me deliberately before the huge mirror in his bedroom, making me watch as he took me from behind, his hand wrapped in my hair, pulling my head back so I could see my own face transformed by pleasure. "Look at yourself," he commanded. "See what I see." I couldn't look away from my flushed cheeks, parted lips, the naked want in my eyes. I didn't recognize that woman, and yet I'd never felt more myself. When it was over, we lay tangled in his sheets, my body pleasantly sore, mind blissfully empty of everything except lingering sensation. "Stay," he said as I began to stir. "I can't." I sat up, reaching for my scattered clothes. One night, remember, he watched me dress without argument. When I was finished, he rose from the bed, gloriously naked and unself-conscious, and pulled on a pair of black boxer briefs. "I'll call you a car." "Thank you." I checked my phone. 3:17 a.m. "For everything." He nodded, already typing on his phone. "It'll be here in 5 minutes." At the door, he caught my hand. "Elise." I looked up at him, suddenly afraid he'd ask for my number, afraid I'd give it. Instead, he simply brushed his lips across my knuckles. "Be well." The elevator doors closed on his unreadable expression, and I leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. Just one night. A perfect, anonymous encounter that would remain untarnished by reality. Exactly what I needed. I had no idea I would see him again. 3 days. That's how long I managed to keep James confined to late-night memories and idle daydreams. 3 days of returning to my normal life, answering emails, attending meetings, making dinner in my too-quiet apartment. 3 days of almost convincing myself that night had been nothing special, Just a rebound. Just sex. I was good at lying to myself. On Monday morning, I stood in my kitchen, coffee mug in hand, staring at the rain through my apartment window. The weekend felt distant already, like something I'd dreamed. I touched my neck absently, remembering the pressure of his fingers there. "Stop it," I muttered to myself, setting down my mug harder than necessary. I needed to focus on work. The manuscript I was editing, a thriller with a female protagonist who made consistently terrible decisions about men, suddenly felt to aunt nose. I was halfway through a particularly problematic chapter when my intercom buzzed. "Delivery for Elise Morgan," a scratchy voice announced. I frowned. I hadn't ordered anything. "You can leave it with the doorman. Signature required, ma'am." Sighing, I pressed the button to let the delivery person up. A minute later, a knock. At my door, I opened it to find a courier in a nondescript uniform holding a small package wrapped in matte black paper. No logos, no return address. Just my name in silver handwriting. Elegant, masculine script. My pulse quickened. "Sign here, please." The courier thrust an electronic pad at me. I scrawled my signature without taking my eyes off the package, then accepted it from him. It was light, no bigger than a hardcover book. "Who sent this?" "Don't know, ma'am. Have a nice day." He was already halfway to the elevator. I closed the door and leaned against it, staring at the package in my hands. There was only one person it could be from. But how had he found my address? I hadn't given him my last name, had I? With trembling fingers, I unwrapped the black paper. Inside was a box of black velvet, the kind that might hold expensive jewelry. I took a deep breath before opening it. Nestled on black satin was a collar, delicate, silver, with a small locked clasp. Not the kind of heavy leather thing I'd seen in movies about BDSM. This was elegant, beautiful even. It could almost pass for a choker necklace, if not for the small silver ring at the front. Beneath it lay a folded note card. 5 words in that same silver handwriting, where it, "Tomorrow night, 8 p.m., an address followed. Not his penthouse, but somewhere in the same upscale neighborhood. I snapped the box shut, my heart hammering. Who did he think he was? We'd agreed on one night, nothing more. And now he was sending me ... what? A collar? Like I was some pet he could summon at will. I should throw it away. Block the memory of him entirely. Instead, I opened the box again, running my fingertip along the cool metal of the collar. The craftsmanship was exquisite. It must have cost a fortune. I lifted it from the box, testing its weight. Light, but substantial. Enough to feel it against my skin. Before I could think better of it, I moved to the bathroom mirror and held it against my throat. The silver gleamed against my skin, making my eyes look darker, my expression somehow altered. I looked like someone else, someone who might do dangerous, thrilling things. My phone rang, startling me so badly I dropped the collar into the sink. Megan's name flashed on the screen. "Hey," I answered, moving away from the mirror, away from temptation. "How are you holding up?" Her voice was gentle, concerned. "After Daniel, I mean. And you know, whatever happened Friday night, you disappeared." On me, I sank onto my couch. "I'm fine, really. Daniel and I were over long before he made it official. And Mr. Tall Dark Expensive Suit from the bar, heat crept up my neck. A one-time thing. That good, huh?" I could hear her grin. "Megan, ... Fine, I'll stop prying. Lunch this week?" "Sure," I agreed, grateful for the change of subject. We made plans for Wednesday, and I hung up. My eyes drifted back to the bathroom doorway. The collar would still be there, lying in the sink like a question I was afraid to answer. I spent the rest of the day alternating between work and thoughts of James. Of the collar, of what it would mean to put it on. I researched collaring online, its significance in certain relationships, the symbolism of ownership and belonging. Most sites emphasized that it represented a serious commitment, not something casual. Had James sent it as a joke, a power play? Or did he genuinely want something more from me? By evening, I'd convinced myself I wouldn't go. I wouldn't even respond. He'd get the message eventually. I made dinner, watched half a movie I couldn't focus on, then went to bed early. Sleep eluded me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw James watching me across that crowded bar, felt his hands guiding my body into positions that maximized my pleasure. Heard his voice, low and commanding. Look at yourself. See what I see. What had he seen? The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in over a year. I spent the day pacing my apartment, picking up the collar and putting it down again, drafting texts to Megan that I never sent. A guy I slept with sent me a collar. Should I be creeped out or turned on? Remember that one-night stand? He wants me to wear his collar tonight. Is that weird? I think I might be into something I never knew I was into, and I'm freaking out at 6 p.m. I took a long shower, telling myself it wasn't a decision. Just showered at 6:30. I blow-dried my hair, applied makeup with more care than usual. Still not a decision. At 7:15, I stood in front of my closet, staring at my options. The black dress from Friday night, too obvious. Something conservative. That felt like lying. I finally selected a deep blue wrap, dress elegant but easy to remove. If that's what happened, at 7:30, I picked up the collar, looked at it for a long minute, then fastened it around my neck. The metal was cool against my skin, snug but not uncomfortable. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. The woman staring back at me looked confident, desirable, owned. I covered the collar with a light scarf, grabbed my purse, ordered a rideshare to the address on the note. As the car wound through city streets, my doubts resurfaced. What was I doing? I knew nothing about this man, except that he was commanding in bed, and apparently wealthy enough to send expensive gifts. He could be married. He could be dangerous. Yet the throbbing pulse between my legs suggested my body had already made its decision. The car pulled up to a nondescript building with a discreet entrance. No doorman, just a keypad. I checked the address again. This was it. Before I could lose my nerve, I punched in the building number on the keypad. A moment later, a voice I recognized immediately. Yes, my mouth went dry. It's Elise. A pause. Did you wear it? I swallowed, aware of the weight around my neck. Yes. The door buzzed open. The elevator required a key card I didn't have, so I waited in the small, elegantly appointed lobby. My reflection stared back at me from mirrored walls, flushed cheeks, wide eyes. The woman who'd spent 3 days trying to forget James looked terrified and exhilarated all at once. When the elevator doors opened, he stood there in a crisp white shirt and dark pants. No tie, no jacket. Casual but immaculate. His eyes traveled over me, lingering on the scarf at my neck. Elise. He said my name like he was tasting it. Come in. I stepped into the elevator, and he slid a key card into a slot. The doors closed. We ascended in silence, standing close enough that I could smell his cologne, but not touching. The tension between us was a physical thing, crackling in the small space. I thought we agreed on one night, I finally said, eyes fixed on the ascending floor numbers. We did. His voice betrayed nothing. You could have thrown the box away. I should have, but you didn't. I looked at him then. No, I didn't. The elevator opened directly into what appeared to be a private club or lounge. Dimly lit, with plush seating areas, a bar along one wall, and several doors leading to other rooms. It was empty except for a bartender who nodded to James and then discreetly disappeared through a side door. "What is this place?" I asked, following him to a secluded seating area with a view of the city. "A private club. I own it." He gestured for me to sit. "Drink bourbon, neat." He raised an eyebrow, a small smile playing at his lips. "Not wine. I'm not feeling particularly delicate tonight." I settled onto the leather sofa, crossing my legs. He moved to the bar and returned with 2 glasses. He handed me one, then sat opposite me, not beside me, giving me space. "The scarf," he said after a moment. "Take it off." My fingers went to the silky fabric at my throat. Slowly, I unwound it, revealing the silver collar beneath. I felt exposed, vulnerable in a way that had nothing to do with physical nakedness. James's expression darkened, his eyes fixed on the metal against my skin. "Beautiful," he murmured. I took a large swallow of bourbon, welcoming the burn. "How did you find my address?" "I have resources." "That's not an answer." "Does it matter?" I considered this. "I suppose not. Since I'm here, why are you here, Elise?" The question hung between us. Why, indeed? Pride urged me to lie, to claim curiosity or boredom. But something about James made me want to be honest. "I can't stop thinking about you," I admitted. "About that night." He nodded slowly. "I've thought of little else. I don't understand what's happening." I gestured between us. "This ... intensity." "The collar. Do you know what a collar symbolizes?" he asked. I did some research. It's about ... ownership. In its simplest form, yes. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. But it's more complex than that. It's about trust, surrender, a mutual exchange of power. I barely know you, yet you're wearing my collar. I touched it self-consciously. "It's beautiful." "It's a question," he said. "One I'm asking you to consider carefully. What exactly are you proposing?" He set his glass down. "I want more than one night with you, Elise. I want to explore what we started. I want to show you what submission can feel like when it's done right." My throat went dry. "I'm not into pain." I remember, this isn't about pain. It's about control, pleasure, testing boundaries. "I've just ended a relationship." "This isn't a relationship," he interrupted. "Not in the conventional sense. It's an arrangement, discreet, private, with clear boundaries and rules." I thought of my night with James, how alive I'd felt, how present in my body, how different from the increasingly perfunctory intimacy with Daniel over our last year together. "What kind of rules?" I asked. "We would establish those together. But primarily, honesty, always. Respect for limits. Regular check-ins to ensure we're both getting what we need." "And what do you need, James?" His eyes met mine, unflinching. "Control. The pleasure of guiding your pleasure. The trust implicit in your surrender." Heat pooled low in my belly. "And what if I say no?" "Then you leave here tonight, keep the collar as a memento, and we never see each other again." The thought made my chest tighten painfully. "And if I say yes?" "Then we begin, slowly. On your terms as much as mine." I took another sip of bourbon, letting the liquid courage flow through me. Images from our night together flashed through my mind, the way he'd commanded my body, the intense pleasure I'd found in following his lead. But this would be more. A deliberate choice to submit, to trust a virtual stranger with my pleasure, my body. "I need time to think," I said finally. James nodded, of course. He reached into his pocket and produced a small silver key. "The key to the collar. It's yours, regardless of your decision. You're free to remove it at any time." I accepted the key, our fingers brushing. Even that slight contact sent electricity skittering across my skin. How will I contact you? I don't have your number. The address on the note. Send your answer there, in writing. Old-fashioned, perhaps, but I find it encourages thoughtfulness. He stood. Would you like me to call you a car? I nodded, suddenly, uncertain of my ability to form coherent sentences. This wasn't how I'd expected the evening to go. I'd imagined ... What? Sex? A continuation of Friday night. Instead, he was offering me something far more complex, more frightening, more intriguing. In the elevator going down, he kept his distance, but his eyes never left me. Just before the doors opened to the lobby, he spoke. Whatever you decide, I want you to know something. His voice was low, intense. What happened between us wasn't ordinary for me either. Then the doors opened, and he gestured for me to exit. Your car will be here momentarily. I stepped out, turning to look at him one last time. Good night, James. Good night, Elise. The doors closed on his unreadable expression. Outside, the night air was cool against my flushed skin. I wound the scarf back around my neck, concealing the collar once more. As promised, a black car pulled up minutes later. On the ride home, I fingered the small silver key in my pocket. Freedom, he'd called it. The choice was mine. For 3 more days, I vacillated. I went to lunch with Megan, nodding at appropriate intervals while she talked about her latest dating app disaster, the collar hidden beneath a high-necked blouse. I edited manuscripts, responded to emails, made grocery lists all, while hyper-aware of the metal against my skin at night. I lay awake, reliving every moment with James. The commanding tone that brooked no argument, the careful way he checked, my comfort even while pushing me to new experiences. The respect in his eyes when he'd said, whatever you decide. I researched dominant, submissive relationships obsessively, learning about contracts and safe words, hard limits and soft limits. Most sites emphasized safety, consent, communication, things James had already prioritized in our brief encounters. On the 3rd night, I sat at my kitchen table with a sheet of expensive stationery, the kind I kept for thank you notes and condolence cards. I wrote, crossed out, rewrote. Nothing seemed right. Too eager, too cautious, too formal. To casual. Finally, I settled on simplicity. Yes, but I have conditions. I addressed the envelope to the club, no name needed. Dropped it in the mail on my way to work the next morning. That night, I removed the collar for the first time since I'd fastened it around my neck 4 days earlier. The skin beneath was pale, marked by the ghost of its presence. I touched the slight indentation, feeling strangely bereft. My phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. Tomorrow, 8 p.m., same place. Whether collar or don't, your choice now. I smiled at the phone. He'd given me his number after all. I'll be there, I replied. Then, after a moment's hesitation, I'll wear it. The next evening found me once again in the private elevator of James's club, pulse racing with anticipation. This time, I wore the collar, openly paired with a simple black dress that showed it off. A deliberate choice and acknowledgement of my decision. James waited for me in the same secluded seating area as before. But the space had been transformed. The low table now held an elegant silver tray with various items. A bottle of wine, 2 glasses, a leather-bound notebook, and what appeared to be a fountain pen. He stood as I approached, his eyes immediately drawn to the collar at my throat. A smile, the first genuine one I'd seen from him, curved his lips. You wore it, I said I would. I remained standing, suddenly uncertain of the protocol. Should I sit, wait for permission? James gestured to the space beside him on the sofa. Please, I sat, smoothing my dress over my knees, close enough to feel his presence, not quite touching. Wine, he offered. I nodded, watching as he poured 2 glasses of rich red liquid. His movements were precise, deliberate. Everything he did conveyed control. Your note mentioned conditions, he said, handing me a glass. I took a fortifying sip before answering. Yes, 3, actually. I'm listening. First, this stays private. No one in my life knows about this ... arrangement. I'd like to keep it that way. He nodded, agreed. Discretion is important to me as well. Second, my career comes first. I won't cancel work commitments for this, of course. He seemed almost amused by this stipulation. And third, I took a deeper breath. I need to be able to say no to anything, at any time, without explanation. James studied me for a long moment. Those aren't conditions, Elise. They're basic rights. I would never compromise on any of them. Something tight in my chest loosened. Good now, maybe. I share what I envision for this arrangement. I nodded, curling my fingers around the wine glass. James reached for the leather notebook. I've prepared some thoughts. Not a contract tie. Find those too formal for what I have in mind. Think of it as ... guidelines. A framework. He opened the notebook and handed it to me. The pages contained neatly written notes in his elegant handwriting. I skimmed the first page. General principles about respect, communication, and consent. The second outlined expectations regarding time commitments, methods of communication, and discretion. It was all very reasonable. Not at all what I'd feared based on some of my late-night research. Turn to the third page, he said quietly. I did. This page was different. A list of activities under headings like interested, curious, and off. Many items I recognized from my research. Others were unfamiliar. This is where we begin to establish parameters, James explained. What interests you, what doesn't, what you might be willing to explore under the right circumstances. You want me to fill this out now? No. Take it home. Consider each item carefully. Research anything unfamiliar. Be honest with yourself and with me. He tapped the off-limits section. Particularly here. These boundaries are sacrosanct. I closed the notebook, oddly touched by his careful approach. You've done this before. Yes. No apology, no defensiveness, just honesty. Recently, it's been some time since I've pursued this kind of arrangement. I wanted to ask Mora about his previous partners. What had happened? Why me but something? In his expression, suggested those questions would be unwelcome. There's one more thing, he said, reaching for the tray. Something I consider non-negotiable. He picked up a small card I hadn't noticed before and handed it to me. A single word was printed on it. Pine. A safe word, I said, recognizing the concept from my research. He nodded. Say it once. I stop whatever I'm doing immediately. Say it twice. I untie anything binding you. Say it 3 times. I take you home. No questions asked. Why pine? Neutral. Easy to remember. Unlikely to come up in any other context. I turned the card over in my fingers. I can choose a different word if I prefer, of course. This is merely a suggestion. I considered it, then shook my head. Pine is fine. Good. He took a sip of his wine. Now, do you have questions for me? So many. But I started with the most pressing. What happens tonight? Tonight, he set his glass down. Nothing beyond this conversation. I want you to take the notebook home. Think about what's written there. Add your own notes. We'll meet again when you're ready to discuss it. I blinked, surprised. That's it. A slow smile spread across his face. Were you expecting something else? Heat crept up my neck. I thought ... given the collar. The collar is symbolic, Elise. We haven't established the parameters of our arrangement yet. Until we do, nothing happens between us. Oh, I wasn't sure if I was disappointed or relieved. Does that surprise you? A little, I admitted. You seemed so certain the other night about what I want. Yes, but what I want includes your fully informed consent. He leaned slightly closer. When I touch you again, if you decide that's what you want, it will be with complete clarity between us. The intensity of his gaze made it hard to breathe, and if I want you to touch me now, something darkened in his eyes. Then you'll have to wait. Anticipation is part of the experience. That seems unfair. I never claimed to be fair. His voice had dropped lower, only clear about my intentions. We sat in charged silence for a moment, the air between us thick with unspoken desire. Finally, James spoke again. There is one thing I'd like to do tonight, if you'll permit it. What's that? I'd like to remove your collar. I frowned, confused. Why? Because I gave it to you before you understood what it meant. Now that you do, I'd like to offer it again properly this time. My hand went to the silver band at my throat. And if I accept, then it becomes a symbol of our mutual agreement, not just my presumption. I considered this, then nodded slowly. All right. James set his wineglass down and turned to face me fully. May I? I nodded again, tilting my chin up slightly to give him better access. His fingers were warm against my skin as he located the small lock at the back of the collar. I heard a soft click as he inserted the key, and then the pressure around my throat eased. He drew the collar away slowly, his knuckles brushing against my neck in a touch so light it might have been accidental. The air felt cool on the skin that had been covered. I resisted the urge to touch the spot. James placed the collar on the table between us, next to the notebook. Take both home with you. Consider what we've discussed. When you're ready, if you're ready, we'll proceed. And if I decide this isn't for me, then you keep the collar as a reminder of an experience that taught you something about yourself. His expression remained neutral, but I sensed a tension in him, a hope that I would return. How will I know if I'm ready? You'll know. He picked up his wineglass again. Trust yourself. We spent the next hour talking about our jobs, our interests, our histories. Nothing too personal, nothing too revealing, yet I felt myself relaxing in his presence. James was intelligent, well-read, with a dry sense of humor that emerged when he spoke about his work in finance. I found myself laughing more than once, surprised by this lighter side of him. When I finally glanced at my watch, I was shocked to see how late it had grown. I should go, I said, setting down my empty glass. James nodded. I'll call you a car. As we waited for confirmation that the car had arrived, he walked me to the elevator. We stood side by side, close but not touching, that same electric tension humming between us. Thank you, I said suddenly, for being methodical about this. A smile touched his lips. I'm methodical about most things, I've noticed. The elevator doors opened. Before stepping in, I turned to him. Can I ask you something? You can ask. Why me? There must be women more experienced with this kind of arrangement. James considered the question for a long moment. Because when I saw you across that bar, I recognized something in you that you perhaps didn't recognize in yourself. And what was that? His eyes held mine. The capacity for extraordinary surrender. My breath caught. Before I could respond, he stepped back slightly. Good night, Elise. Good night, James. As the elevator descended, I clutched the notebook and collar to my chest, my mind racing with possibilities. The capacity for extraordinary surrender. The words echoed in my head, frightening and thrilling all at once. At home, I spread the contents of the notebook on my bed. Each page was filled with James's neat handwriting. detailing aspects of dominance and submission I'd only vaguely understood from my hasty research. He'd organized it logically, beginning with principles and progressing to specific practices. The list of activities was extensive, ranging from light bondage to sensory deprivation, from role play to various forms of discipline. Each item included a brief description for clarity. None involved severe pain or degradation, I noted with relief. I spent hours reviewing the material, researching unfamiliar terms, reflecting on what appealed to me and what didn't. By the time I finally fell asleep, the notebook was filled with my own notes, check marks, and questions. The collar lay on my nightstand, catching the moonlight through my curtains. I dreamed of James's hands fastening it around my throat once. More, his voice in my ear. Now you're mine. When I woke the next morning, I knew my answer. 3 days later, I returned to James's club, notebook in hand. This time, he met me in the elevator, eyes immediately finding the collar I wore once again around my neck. You've decided, he said. Not a question, yes. The elevator opened to reveal not the club space, but a different floor, a spacious apartment, decorated in the same minimalist style as his penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the city lights, but heavy curtains stood ready to block. Out the world, your place, I asked, following him into the open living area. One of them, more private than the club. I handed him the notebook. I've made my notes. He accepted it, but didn't open it immediately. Drink first. Or would you prefer to discuss this right away? Discussion first. I've been thinking about little else. A small smile touched his lips. As have I. We sat at a sleek dining table, the notebook between us. James opened it, scanning my annotations, with an expression of careful neutrality. Occasionally, he would nod slightly or raise an eyebrow. You're thorough, he said finally, looking up at me. So are you. Any questions before we proceed? I took a deep breath. Just one. What happens tonight? After we finished discussing the parameters, James's eyes darkened slightly. That depends on what we agree to. And if I want to begin immediately, then we will. His voice had taken on that commanding edge I remembered from our first night together. But first, clarity. For the next hour, we discussed the notebook in detail. James asked thoughtful questions about my boundaries, clarified expectations, and shared his own preferences. It was the most honest conversation I'd ever had about desire, clinical at times, intensely intimate at others. So, he said finally, closing the notebook, we have an understanding. We do. And the safe word, pine, I confirmed. Once to pause, twice to untie, 3 times to end. James nodded, satisfied. Then there's only one question left. He leaned forward slightly. Do you want to begin tonight? My pulse quickened. Yes, stand up. The command was gentle, but unmistakable. I rose from my chair, suddenly hyper-aware of my body, of James's gaze on me. Come here. I walked around the table to stand before him. He remained seated, looking up at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. The collar, he said. Remove it. My fingers went to the lock at the back, inserting the small key I'd kept on a chain around my wrist. The collar came away in my hands. James held out his hand. I placed the collar in his palm. Kneel. A thrill ran through me at the word. I sank to my knees before him, the plush carpet cushioning them. Elise Morgan, he said formally, I offer you this collar as a symbol of our arrangement. While you wear it, you submit to my guidance, my control, my care. Do you accept? I do. He leaned forward, fastening the collar around my neck once more. The metal was warm from his hands. Look at me, he commanded softly. I raised my eyes to his, Beautiful, he murmured, tracing a finger along my jawline. Now, your first lesson in submission, patience. For what felt like an eternity, he simply looked at me, his finger occasionally tracing patterns on my skin, my cheek, my neck, the sensitive spot behind my ear. Never going further, never giving more than that whisper of contact, I remained still, though every nerve ending screamed for more. My breathing quickened, but I didn't speak, didn't move. Somehow I understood that this was part of the test code. I stay present in this moment of anticipation. Good, he said finally. Very good. Now stand and remove your dress. I arose and reached for the zipper at the back of my simple black dress. I lowered it slowly, maintaining eye contact with James as the fabric slipped from my shoulders and pooled at my feet. Beneath, I wore only black lace underwear. His eyes traveled over me appreciatively, but his expression remained controlled. Turn around, slowly. I did as instructed, turning in a complete circle until I faced him again. Come closer. I stepped forward until I stood between his knees. His hands went to my waist, thumbs brushing over my hip bones in small circles. Just that light touch sent heat coursing through me. Tonight, he said, is about establishing trust. I won't bind you. I won't push your limits. But I will control your pleasure. Do you understand? Yes, yes. What? I hesitated, recalling our discussion. Yes, James. His lips curved in approval. Very good. Now, close your eyes. What followed was unlike anything I'd experienced. James guided me to his bedroom, where he proceeded to explore my body with careful precision, cataloguing my responses, noting what made me gasp, what made me tremble. Sometimes he would whisper instructions. Don't move. Tell me how this feels. Ask for what you want. He brought me to the edge repeatedly, never quite allowing release, building a tension so exquisite it bordered on pain, all while barely undressing himself. Maintaining that control I'd come to associate with him when he finally allowed me to climax. It was with his hand wrapped gently around my throat, just above the collar, his command, now, Elise, pushing me over into an intensity that left me breathless and shaking. After, he held me close, murmuring words of praise against my hair. You did beautifully, he said. Perfect surrender. In those quiet moments, feeling strangely safe in the arms of this man I barely knew, I realized something profound had shifted within me. I had given control to another person and found not weakness, but a curious kind of strength. Stay tonight, James said softly. I nodded against his chest, too content to speak, too exhausted to move. Next time, he whispered, we'll explore more. The promise in those words followed me into sleep. Morning found me in James's bed, alone. The space beside me was empty, but still warm. I stretched, cataloguing unfamiliar aches, the pleasant soreness of muscles used in new ways. The collar remained around my throat, a constant reminder of the night before. The bedroom door opened, and James appeared with a tray, bearing coffee and what smelled like freshly baked pastries. He'd dressed in casual pants and a soft grey t-shirt, most informal I'd seen him. You're awake, he said, setting the tray on the bedside table. How do you feel? I considered the question seriously. Good, different, somehow. He smiled, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. Different how? More ... present. I don't know how to explain it. You don't need to. He handed me a mug. That's common after an intense experience. The heightened awareness can last for hours, sometimes days. I sipped the coffee perfect, of course, and watched him over the rim. In daylight, James seemed both more and less intimidating. The commanding presence remained, but there was a softness around his eyes I hadn't noticed before. Do you have work today? He asked. I glanced at the clock. Nearly 9. Yes, but not until 11. I have a meeting with an author. I'll have a car take you home whenever you're ready. Thank you. I hesitated. And when will I see you again? That depends on your schedule and your desire. Both are quite accommodating. A slow smile spread across his face. Friday evening, then. I have something particular in mind. Friday, I nodded, already feeling the flutter of anticipation. Should I come here? No, I'll text you an address. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face. Wear something elegant, and the collar, of course. After breakfast, I showered in James's luxurious bathroom, then dressed in last night's clothes. As promised, a car waited to take me home. Before I left, James caught my hand, bringing it to his lips. Until Friday, Elise. The simple gesture stayed with me all the way home, a warmth that spread from my hand to my core. At my apartment, I removed the collar and placed it carefully in its velvet box. Already, I missed its weight against my skin. But wearing it to work seemed inappropriate, a blending of worlds I wasn't ready for. Later, sitting across from one of my authors in a cafe near the publishing house, I found my mind drifting to James. To his hands, his voice, the control he'd exerted over my pleasure. Elise, are you all right? I snapped back to the present. Sorry, Mark, just a bit distracted today. He smiled knowingly. New relationship. Heat crept up my neck. Something like that. Well, whoever he is, he's a lucky guy. If only he knew. After the meeting, I returned to the office to find Megan perched on the edge of my desk, scrolling through her phone. There you are, she said, looking up. Lunch. I'm starving, and I need all the details on whatever's making you glow like that. Glow. I'm not glowing, she snorted. Please. You've got that freshly fucked look all over you, Megan. I glanced around, but our colleagues were absorbed in their own work. So there is someone. I knew it. Spill. I grabbed my purse. Lunch, but I'm not spilling anything. At our favorite bistro, Megan wasted no time. Is it bar guy, the one-night stand that wasn't? I focused intently on the menu. Maybe. I knew it. What happened to one-time thing? It's complicated. She leaned forward, eyes sparkling with interest. Complicated how? Is he married? In a cult? Secretly, your long-lost cousin? No. I laughed, despite myself. Nothing like that. He's just different from anyone I've dated before. Different good or different runaway now. I thought of James's careful attention to boundaries, his insistence on clarity before proceeding. Different good. Very good. So what's the problem? No problem. It's just new, and I'm still figuring it out. Megan studied me over her water glass. You know you can tell me anything, right? No judgment. For a moment, I was tempted to confide in her about the collar, the arrangement, the way submission made me feel simultaneously vulnerable and powerful. But something held me back. Not shame, exactly, but a desire to keep this part of my life private. Sacred, almost. No, I said instead, and I appreciate that. But for now, I'd like to keep it to myself. She shrugged. Fair enough. But when you're ready to talk, I'm here. Thanks, Meg. That night, a text from James. Thinking of you. How was your day? Such a normal message, the kind any new lover might send. Yet knowing it came from him, the man who'd commanded me to my knees, who'd controlled my pleasure with meticulous precision, gave it a weight beyond the simple words. Good, I replied. Busy, distracted, by what? You know by what. His response came quickly. Tell me, specifically. My pulse quickened, even through text. His dominance asserted itself by your hands, your voice, the way you made me wait for release. A long pause, then. Good girl. Sleep well, Elise. Dream of Friday. I did dream that night vivid erotic dreams that left me waking breathless, aching for his touch. In the shower, I brought myself to a quick, unsatisfying climax, knowing it was a poor substitute for what awaited me. The rest of the week passed in a haze of anticipation. Work provided some distraction, but my thoughts kept returning to James, to what he might have planned for Friday. Thursday night, his text arrived. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. The address below, where the collar beneath your clothes. Don't come until I permit. The last instruction made me flush with heat. Surely he didn't mean ... A second text clarified. To be clear, no orgasms until tomorrow night. Consider it preparation ... I stared at my phone, equal parts frustrated and aroused by the command. Could he really expect me to control that? Yet the challenge excited me, another form of submission, another way to please him. Understood, I replied. His response was immediate. Good girl. 2 simple words that sent a thrill through me. I wanted to be good for him. I wanted to earn his approval, his praise. The realization should have disturbed me. Instead, it felt like discovering a truth I'd always known about myself, but never acknowledged. Friday couldn't come soon enough. Friday evening arrived with agonizing slowness. I'd spent the day in a state of heightened awareness, every sensation amplified by anticipation and the self-denial James had commanded. The collar felt particularly snug beneath the high-necked black dress I'd chosen, elegant, as instructed, but with a hidden zipper down the front, for easy removal. The address James had sent led me to an upscale hotel in the financial district. The doorman directed me to the private elevator that serviced only the penthouse suites. My reflection in the mirrored walls looked flushed, expectant. When the doors opened, James was waiting, impeccable in a dark suit. His eyes swept over me. Appreciatively, "You look beautiful," he said, taking my hand to help me step from the elevator. "Thank you." I glanced around the suite, spacious, luxurious, with the same magnificent city views as his other properties. Why here? Change of scenery. He led me into the main room, where a small table was set for dinner. I thought we might enjoy a meal together first. That sounds lovely. He pulled out my chair, then seated himself across from me. A waiter appeared from an adjoining room, pouring wine and serving the first course. I realized James must have arranged private dining service. "Did you follow my instruction?" he asked once the waiter had discreetly withdrawn. Heat crept up my neck. "Yes." "Was it difficult?" "Very." A satisfied smile played at his lips. Good anticipation enhances experience. Throughout dinner, James maintained a casual conversation about my work, sharing anecdotes from his day. Yet undercurrents of tension charged every word, every glance. His hand occasionally brushed mine as he reached for his wineglass. Each contact sent electricity skittering across my skin. After dessert, a decadent chocolate creation I barely tasted, James dismissed. The wait staff. We were alone. "Come here," he said, moving to stand by the floor-to-ceiling windows. I joined him, heart racing. "Look at the city," he instructed. "All those lights, all those people going about their lives, never knowing what's happening up here." His hands settled on my shoulders from behind. "Does that excite you? The secrecy?" "Yes," I admitted. "What else excites you, Elise?" I swallowed hard. "You. Be specific." "Your control, your ... precision." His hand slid down my arms, then back up to my neck, fingers tracing the outline of the collar beneath my dress. "Show me." I understood immediately. Reaching for the zipper at my neckline, I lowered it slowly, revealing the silver collar gleaming against my skin. "Beautiful," he murmured. "Continue." I unzipped the dress completely, letting it fall open to reveal the black lingerie beneath the delicate bra and matching panties. With garters holding up sheer stockings, James had expressed a preference for such things in our discussions. His sharp intake of breath confirmed I'd chosen well. "Turn around," he commanded softly. I did, now facing the window, the city spread out below us. Behind me, I felt James step closer, his breath warm on my neck. "Anyone could see you," he said, "but they won't. The glass is treated, we can see out, but no one can see in. Still, they're out there, unaware of how exquisite you look right now." His hands slid the dress from my shoulders, letting it pool at my feet. Then his fingers were at the clasp of my bra, unhooking it with practiced ease. It joined my dress on the floor. "Hands on the glass," he instructed. Feet apart. I placed my palms against the cool window, positioning my feet as directed. The pose left me feeling exposed, vulnerably exactly as intended. James stepped back, and I heard him removing his jacket, the soft hiss of his belt being drawn from its loops. Anticipation coiled tight in my belly. "Tonight," he said, returning to stand behind me, "we explore surrender more deeply. Do you remember your safe word?" "Pine," I whispered. "Good girl." What followed was an exquisite lesson in submission. James bound my wrists with his silk tie, securing them above my head to a convenient hook I hadn't noticed before. He must have planned this meticulously. "Close your eyes," he commanded. "Keep them closed until I say otherwise." Darkness enveloped me, heightening every other sense of the coolness of the glass against my breasts. The warmth of James's presence behind me, the distant sounds of the city below. I felt something soft brush against my back, a scarf, perhaps, or another tie. James trailed it across my skin, down my spine, around to my stomach. Just that light touch had me trembling with need. "So responsive," he murmured approvingly, "but we've only just begun." For what felt like hours, he alternated between teasing touches and firm caresses, never allowing me to predict what would come next. Sometimes his hands, sometimes fabric. Sometimes what I realized was a soft leather crop knot striking, just brushing against my most sensitive areas, all while maintaining a steady stream of words praise for my responses. Descriptions of what he planned to do next, questions that required me to articulate my pleasure. "How does this feel?" he would ask, trailing fingers along my inner thigh. "Good," I'd gasp. "So good." "Not enough," he'd counter. "Be precise. What exactly feels good?" "How?" Forcing me to find words for sensations I'd never tried to articulate. Before when he finally touched me intimately, I was so aroused that even the lightest contact had me moaning, straining against my bonds. "Please," I begged. "Please, James." "Not yet," he said firmly. "You've waited all day. You can wait longer." He brought me to the edge repeatedly, each time pulling back just before release. I was whimpering, desperate, completely at his mercy exactly where he wanted me. "What do you need, Elise?" he asked, his voice rough with his own desire. "You," I gasped. "Inside me, please." I heard the distinctive sound of a condom wrapper, then felt him positioning himself behind me. One hand gripped my hip, the other wrapped gently around my throat, just above the collar. "Open your eyes," he commanded. "Watch yourself in the reflection of the glass." I did, and the image seared itself into my memory, my bound wrists, flushed skin, James's intense expression as he entered me in one smooth thrust. "Don't come until I tell you," he said, against my ear. It was the most exquisite torture, feeling him move within me, bringing me closer and closer to the edge I'd been denied for so long, yet having to hold back, to wait for his permission. When it finally came, his voice, rough with his own approaching climax. "Now, Elise. Come for me now." The release was shattering. I cried out, body convulsing around him, vision blurring as pleasure overtook me completely. James followed moments later, his grip on my hip tightening, a groan torn from his throat. Afterward, he untied me carefully, massaging my wrists, wrapping me in a plush hotel robe. He led me to the massive bed, where he held me close as tremors of aftershock rippled through me. "You were perfect," he murmured, pressing kisses to my hair, my temples, my lips, "so beautiful in your surrender." In that moment of vulnerability, still floating in the aftermath of intense pleasure, I felt something shift between us, a deepening connection that went beyond the physical, beyond our carefully negotiated arrangement. I fell asleep in his arms, the collar still around my throat, feeling strangely, perfectly safe. Over the next few weeks, a pattern emerged. Twice, sometimes 3 times a week, I would meet James at one of his properties. Each encounter pushed me further, introduced new experiences, deepened my submission. Each time, I left feeling more connected to him, and strangely, to myself. But, for all the intimacy we shared physically, James remained emotionally guarded. I knew little about his life beyond our arrangement, glimpses of his work from casual comments, hints about his past from the books on his shelves or the art on his walls, but nothing substantial, nothing real, until one night in late October, when something shifted. I arrived at his penthouse to find not the usual setup for a scene, but a simple dinner waiting. James greeted me with a kiss, gentle, almost tentative. "I thought we might just talk tonight," he said, taking my coat. "If that's all right with you." I blinked in surprise. Of course, he'd cooked himself another first. A simple but beautifully prepared meal of seared salmon, roasted vegetables, and crusty bread. He poured wine, his movements less precise than usual, almost nervous. "Is everything okay?" I asked as we sat. "Yes," he paused. "I realize that our arrangement has been unbalanced. You've shared much of yourself with me. I've shared very little in return. You don't owe me your life story, James." "Perhaps not, but I'd like you to know me better." "If you want to," I smiled. "I do." That night, over dinner, and then wine on his balcony, James opened up. He told me about growing up wealthy but emotionally neglected parents who provided everything except attention. About discovering his dominant tendencies in college, fumbling through early experiences before seeking proper education in BDSM communities. "I made mistakes," he admitted. "Hurt people unintentionally. That's when I learned the importance of boundaries, of explicit consent." "Is that why you're so methodical now?" He nodded. "I never want to cause harm through ignorance or carelessness. And your work, I know you're in finance, but not much else." "Investment banking, primarily. I specialize in sustainable development projects, renewable energy, green infrastructure." I raised an eyebrow. That single quotes as ... unexpected, because it doesn't fit your image of a dominant. "Maybe," I admitted, though I'm not sure what I expected. "Venture capitalism, corporate takeovers." He laughed, a genuine, unguarded sound I'd rarely heard from him. "I like building things that last, that make a difference." He looked out at the city lights. "Control isn't always about power over others. Sometimes it's about creating systems that work, that sustain." "Is that how you see our arrangement? A system?" He turned back to me, eyes serious. "No, that's something else entirely." "What is it?" Then he considered the question, an exploration, a connection I didn't expect to find. Something warm unfurled in my chest at his words. "Why me, James? You never really answered that question." He was quiet for a long moment. "When I saw you that night, you looked lost, but not broken, like you were searching for something you couldn't name." His eyes met mine. I recognized it because I've felt it too. "What were you searching for?" "Someone who could receive what I have to give." who could surrender not out of weakness, but strength. He reached for my hand. Someone like you. The simple honesty of his answer moved me more than any elaborate declaration could have. And have you found what you were looking for? I asked. Softly. I believe I have. He brought my hand to his lips. Have you? I thought about the past weeks, the freedom I'd found in submission, the joy in pleasing him, the deep contentment after our encounters. Yes, I said, though I didn't know I was looking for it. He smiled. The best discoveries are often unexpected. Later, in his bed, our lovemaking was different, less orchestrated, more equal. Not dominant and submissive, just James and Elise, learning each other in a new way. Afterward, lying in his arms, I gathered my courage to ask the question that had been growing in my mind. Have there been many others? Like me, I mean? He tensed slightly. Do you really want to know? Yes. Not details, just context. He sighed. 3 serious arrangements. A few more casual explorations. What happened with the serious ones? Different things. The first wanted more than I could give a conventional relationship, alongside the dominance and submission. The second discovered she preferred female dominance. The third, ... He hesitated. We were compatible in many ways, but ultimately wanted different things. And what do you want, James? Long term, I mean. He was quiet for so long, I thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, I used to think I knew. Now I'm less certain, because of me. Yes. The simple admission hung between us, weighted with unspoken implications. I should go, I said, though it was the last thing I wanted. Stay, he said, please. So I did, falling asleep with his arms around me, the collar still at my throat, my mind spinning with questions I wasn't ready to ask. In the morning, over coffee and croissants he'd had delivered, James asked, would you consider spending the weekend with me? My house on the coast. It would give us more time together, a whole weekend. He nodded. No expectations. We can define the parameters however you like. I thought about my empty apartment, the manuscript I could easily edit remotely, the time stretching before me. I'd like that. His smile was worth any doubt. I'll make arrangements. As I left for work, he kissed me lingeringly at the door. Thank you, he said. For what? For seeing me. Not just the dominant, me. I touched his face gently. I like what I see. Walking to the subway, I realized with a start that what had begun as a carefully negotiated arrangement was becoming something else entirely. Something that looked dangerously like falling in love. James's coastal home was a modernist marvel of glass and cedar, perched on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic. We arrived Friday evening as the sun was setting, painting the water in shades of gold and crimson. It's beautiful, I breathed as he led me through the house, spacious yet intimate, with floor-to-ceiling windows framing the ocean view. I come here to think, he said. To reset. Do you bring many people here? He shook his head. Very few. The significance of that wasn't lost on me. After a simple dinner, prepared by a private chef, who discreetly departed afterward, James poured us each a glass of wine and led me to the deck overlooking the water. I want to try something new tonight, he said, his voice taking on that commanding edge that sent shivers down my spine. Something that will test your trust in me. What did you have in mind? Sensory deprivation, followed by sensory overload. My pulse quickened. We'd discussed this in our initial negotiations. I'd marked it as curious rather than interested or off-limits. I'm listening, I said. I want to blindfold you. Bind your wrists and ankles. Take away your sight, your movement, your control completely. Then I want to bring you pleasure, so intense it borders on too much. Borders on I won't cross your limits, Elise, but I want to bring you to them. show you what you can endure, what you can transcend. I considered his words, feeling that familiar mixture of apprehension and arousal. I trust you. His expression softened momentarily. Remember your safe word, pine. Use it if you need to. There's no failure in that. I nodded, understanding the implicit challenge. He wanted to push me, yes, but also to teach me to recognize and honor my own boundaries. Finish your wine, he instructed. Then go upstairs to the master bedroom. Remove your clothes, kneel at the foot of the bed, and wait for me. I did as commanded, anticipation building with each step. The master bedroom continued the glass and cedar theme, dominated by a massive bed with a view of stars and ocean. Kneeling naked on the plush carpet, collar around my throat, I felt strangely peaceful. The weight deliberate, I knew. My awareness focused my mind on the coming experience. When James finally entered, he carried a small leather case. He set it on the bedside table, then stood before me, still fully dressed in his casual weekend attire of dark jeans and a grey cashmere sweater. Beautiful, he murmured, reaching down to trace my collar with one finger. Are you ready? Yes. James stand. I rose gracefully, keeping my eyes downcast as he had taught me. On the bed, center, on your back, I positioned myself as instructed. The cool sheets against my skin making me shiver slightly. James opened the leather case, removing items one by one: a black silk blindfold, soft leather cuffs, what appeared to be a small remote control. Arms above your head, he directed. I complied, watching as he secured my wrists to the headboard with a leather cuff snug, but not tight, connected by a short chain that allowed minimal movement. Next came ankle cuffs, attached to the beds. Lower corners, spreading my legs wide, vulnerable, exposed. Still comfortable? He asked. Yes, good. He held up the blindfold. Once I put this on, you'll be completely at my mercy. Last chance to change your mind. I trust you, I repeated. The silk settled over my eyes, plunging me into darkness. I felt James secure it at the back of my head, then his weight shifting off the bed. What followed was disorienting at first, the loss of sight heightening every other sense. I could hear James moving around the room, the soft rustle of clothing suggesting he was undressing. I could smell his cologne, feel the slight shift in air pressure as he moved closer to the bed. I'm going to touch you now, his voice came from somewhere to my right. Not immediately where you expect or want. Just feel. Focus on each sensation. His touch, when it came, was feather-light fingertips tracing patterns on my arm, my collarbone, my ribs. Never lingering, never predictable. Sometimes disappearing entirely, leaving me tense with anticipation of where I would feel him next. Breathe, he reminded me. Relax into it. I tried, focusing on my breathing, on staying present with each sensation. Gradually, I surrendered to the experienced uncertainty, becoming part of the pleasure rather than something to resist. When he finally touched me intimately, I gasped, arching against my restraints. Patience, he murmured. We're just beginning. What followed was an exquisite tormenting between light, teasing touches and more intense sensations. Sometimes his fingers, sometimes his mouth, sometimes objects from his case a soft feather, a cool metal wheel that sent shivers across my skin, a vibrating wand that he held just close enough to create maddening pulses of pleasure. Throughout, he maintained a steady commentary telling me what he was doing, what he saw, how I was responding. His voice became an anchor in my darkness, keeping me grounded even as sensations threatened to overwhelm me. You're so beautiful like this, he said. So responsive, so open. The praise washed over me, heightening my pleasure. I strained against the cuffs, not to escape, but to arch closer to his touch. just as I thought I couldn't bear any more stimulation without release. James introduced something new, a sensation so intense, so overwhelming, that I cried out in shock. "Color?" he asked immediately, using the system we'd established to check my comfort level. I took a shuddering breath, assessing the sensation. Some kind of vibrating device placed directly against my most sensitive area was almost too much, bordering on painful in its intensity. "Yellow," I gasped, using our code for approaching my limit. Immediately, James removed the device. "Good," he said. "Very good for telling me." He gave me a moment to recover. "Then, we'll try something else." The next sensation was gentler still, intense, but more manageable. I moaned, feeling myself climbing rapidly toward climax. "Not yet," James commanded. "Hold back." I whimpered, but obeyed, focusing on my breathing, fighting the building pressure. "Good girl," he praised. "Just a little longer." The cycle repeated, bringing me to the edge, commanding me to wait, then backing off slightly before building again. Each time, the peak was higher, the effort to hold back more difficult. Finally, when I was trembling, covered in a fine sheen of sweat, pleading incoherently, I felt him position himself above me. "Now," he said, entering me in one smooth thrust. "Come for me now, Elise." The release was shattering wave after wave of pleasure, so intense it bordered on pain. I screamed, body convulsing, pulling against the restraints. Through it all, James moved within me, prolonging the sensation, whispering praise and encouragement. When the first climax began to subside, he changed his angle slightly, hitting a spot that triggered a second, even more powerful orgasm. "James," I cried out. Can't, it's too much pine," he reminded me. "Say it if you need to." I hesitated on the edge of overwhelm, teetering between too much and transcendence. Then, instead of the safe word, I heard myself whisper, "More." James groaned, his control finally slipping. His movements became faster, deeper. One hand went to my throat, applying the gentlest pressure just above the collar. "Once more," he commanded. "Give me one more, Elise." Impossibly, my body responded, climbing toward a third peak that crested just as James found his own release. Afterward, he removed the blindfold first, letting me adjust to the dim light, then the cuffs, massaging each limb as he freed it. Finally, he gathered me against his chest, wrapping me in a soft blanket. "You did beautifully," he murmured, pressing kisses to my hair, my temples, my still trembling lips. "So beautiful, so perfect." I curled against him, too overwhelmed for words, feeling strangely weightless, transcendent. In pushing me to my limits, James had shown me something profound, not just about pleasure, but about my own capacity for trust, for surrender, for resilience. We fell asleep tangled together, his arms tight around me, as if afraid I might disappear. The rest of the weekend passed in a haze of pleasure and surprising tenderness. James showed me another side of himself, cooking breakfast in bare feet and rumpled pajama bottoms, taking me for walks along the private beach, sharing stories from his childhood. Between these domestic moments, he would reassert his dominance, but the lines between our arrangement and something more traditional began to blur. Sunday evening, reluctant to leave, I stood on the deck watching the sunset, while James made arrangements for our return to the city. "We could stay another night," he suggested, coming to stand behind me, arms circling my waist. "I have meetings. Tomorrow I can't reschedule," I said regretfully, leaning back against him. "Next weekend then, come back with me." I turned in his arms. "James... what is this becoming?" He studied my face. "Does it need a definition?" "Maybe. I just want to understand what you want from me. Everything you're willing to give." His honesty, was disarming. And you, what do you want from me? Before I could answer, my phone chimed with a text message. I wouldn't have checked it, but something in me tensed at the sound, an inexplicable premonition. Sorry, I murmured, pulling away to grab my phone from the nearby table. The message was from Megan, 911. Call me ASAP. Daniel drama, everything. All right? James asked, noting my expression. I'm not sure. I need to make a call. He nodded. I'll finish packing. I stepped into the house, dialing Megan's number with a sense of dread. Finally, she answered. Where have you been all weekend? Away. What's going on with Daniel? He showed up at my place last night, drunk and ranting about wanting you back. Said he's been trying to reach you for days. I frowned. My phone's been on. He hasn't called or texted. Well, he claims he has. Said something about stopping by. Your apartment too. A chill ran through me. Is he still with you? God, no. I poured coffee down him and put him in an Uber. But Elise... He seemed really off. Possessive, in a way I've never seen from him. He's the one who ended things, I reminded her. I know, that's what makes this so weird. Anyway, I just wanted to warn you. Maybe stay somewhere else tonight if you can. I glanced toward the bedroom where James was packing. I'll figure something out. After hanging up, I stood motionless, processing. Daniel had never been volatile, even during our worst fights. This behavior was completely out of character. Problem? I turned to find James watching me from the doorway, his expression unreadable. My ex, I explained. Apparently he's been trying to contact me. Showed up drunk at my friend's place looking for me. Something darkened in James's eyes. Is he dangerous? No, not at all. Just ... unexpected. James crossed to me, placing his hands on my shoulders. Stay with me tonight. It wasn't a question, but I heard the concern beneath the command. Are you sure? Completely. His thumbs traced gentle circles on my collarbone. I don't like the idea of you dealing with this alone. The protectiveness in his voice sent a warm flutter through my chest. Thank you. On the drive back to the city, I checked my phone. Sure enough, there were 3 missed calls from Daniel, all from late Saturday night, and 1 voicemail I'd somehow missed. I played it on speaker, James beside me in the back seat of his car. Elise. Daniel's voice was slurred but recognizable. I know you're avoiding me, Safine. I deserve it, but we need to talk. I made a mistake. A huge mistake. Call me back, okay? Please? James's jaw tightened visibly. Do you want to call him? Not particularly, I admitted. Whatever he wants to say, I'm not interested in hearing it. Good. The single word carried a weight of possession that should have alarmed me, but instead felt comforting. At James's penthouse. I sent a brief text to Daniel. I'm fine, but not available to talk. Please respect that. His response came almost immediately. Where are you? We need to talk in person. I still have your spare key. I can come over. Cold dread washed over me. I'd forgotten about the key I'd given him for emergencies. Everything all right? James asked, emerging from the bathroom in a cloud of steam, towel wrapped around his waist. I showed him the message. I need to get that key back. James's expression hardened. Text him back. Tell him you're staying with a friend, that you'll arrange to get the key another time. I did, adding, please don't go to my apartment. I won't be there. Daniel, too late. I'm here now. Where are you staying? I'll bring your mail. He's at my apartment, I told James, anxiety rising. I should go deal with this. No. James's tone was firm. You're not meeting him alone, especially if he's been drinking. He's not dangerous, James. You don't know that. Not right now. He sat beside me on the bed. Let me come with you. Or at least have my driver take you and wait. I hesitated, torn between wanting to handle this myself and appreciating James's concern. I'll take your driver, I decided. But I need to do this alone. James clearly didn't like it, but he nodded. Call me the moment you feel uncomfortable. I can be there in 15 minutes. I leaned over to kiss him, touched by his protectiveness. I will. 30 minutes later, I stood outside my apartment door, heart racing. I could hear movement inside. Daniel was definitely there. Taking a deep breath, I unlocked the door and stepped in. Daniel sat on my couch, a stack of mail beside him, nursing what appeared to be a glass of my whiskey. He looked terrible unshaven, eyes bloodshot, clothes rumpled. There you are, he said, standing unsteadily. Finally, you shouldn't be here, Daniel. Where have you been? I've been trying to reach you. That's not your concern anymore. Kept my voice calm, neutral. We broke up, remember? He ran a hand through his already disheveled hair. I made a mistake. We were good together, Elise. 3 years. That means something. It did. Past tense. I held out my hand. I need my key back. Who is he? Daniel's voice hardened. Excuse me, the guy you're with. Megan, let it slip, you're seeing someone. Is that where you've been all weekend? With him, I crossed my arms. Again, not your concern. It is if he's the reason you won't talk to me. He stepped closer. 3 years, Elise. Don't throw that away for some rebound fling. You threw it away, I reminded him. And now I'd like you to leave. Not until you hear me out. He reached for my arm. I stepped back. No, the key, Daniel. Then go. Something in my tone must have gotten through to him. He blinked, seemed to really see me for the first time. You've changed, he said quietly. Something's different about you. I thought of James, of the strength I'd found in submission, in knowing exactly what I wanted and didn't want. Yes, I have. Daniel stared at me for a long moment, then reached into his pocket and extracted my key. He placed it on the coffee table between us. I really did love you, he said. I know, I loved you too, but it's over. I moved toward the door, holding it open. Please go. He gathered his jacket, pausing as he passed me. Is he good to you, this new guy? The question caught me off guard. Yes, I said honestly. Very good. Daniel nodded once, then left without another word. I closed the door behind him, leaning against it, relief washing over me. My phone buzzed with a text from James. Everything all right? I smiled at the screen. Yes, he's gone. Key recovered. Do you want me to send the car back? I considered my empty apartment, suddenly unwelcoming after Daniel's presence. Yes, please. Coming right away. Pack a bag for the week. The command made me pause. For the week. That was a significant escalation from occasional nights together. The week. His response was immediate, unless you'd prefer not to. I thought about spending every night in James's arms, waking up beside him each morning, and felt a surge of warmth. No, I'd like that good. Car will be there in 5 minutes. As I packed a suitcase with enough clothes for work and evenings with James, I reflected on how quickly my life had changed since that night at the bar. From the wreckage of a 3-year relationship that had ended with a whimper, I'd found something I never knew I wanted, a connection that challenged me, fulfilled me, made me feel more myself than I ever had before. It should have frightened me, how completely James had inserted himself into my life. Instead, it felt right. Inevitable. Almost the intercom buzzed, announcing the car's arrival. I took one last look around my apartment, then locked the door behind me, leaving Daniel and our shared past firmly on the other side. Living with James, even temporarily, revealed new dimensions to our relationship. By day, We maintained our separate lives, me editing manuscripts in his home office, him attending meetings and video calls in his study. But evenings and nights belonged to us, to our evolving dynamic. "I want to try something different tonight," James said one evening, a week into my stay. We sat on his balcony, watching the city lights emerge as dusk settled. "Something more ... intense." My pulse quickened. "What did you have in mind?" "Complete surrender." His eyes were serious as they met mine. "Not just your body, but your mind, your will. Haven't I already given you that?" He shook his head slightly. "Not entirely. You still hold something back, Elise. A part of yourself. That watches, that analyzes, that remains separate from the experience." I couldn't deny it. Even in my deepest submission, some small part of me remained detached, observing. "How would this be different?" I asked. "I want to take you beyond conscious thought, beyond analysis, to a place where there's only sensation, only submission." He touched my face gently. "It's called subspace, a kind of altered state that can come from the right kind of intense experience." I'd read about this in my researcher trance-like state. Some submissives achieved, described variously as floating, transcendent, euphoric. Is it safe? With proper care, yes. I'd be with you the entire time, monitoring your responses, and your safe word remains in effect, always. I considered it, both frightened and intrigued by the prospect of letting go so completely. "What would you do to me?" Multiple sensations, sustained, building slowly. It's not about pain, but about overwhelming your senses until your conscious mind surrenders. His voice lowered. "I want to see you completely undone, Elise, and then I want to put you back together." A shiver ran through me that had nothing to do with the evening breeze. "Yes," I heard myself say, "I trust you." Later that night, in his bedroom, James prepared me with unusual carolong. Sensual bath with aromatic oils, a glass of wine to relax me, gentle massage as I lay naked on his bed. "Remember," he said as he fastened leather cuffs to my wrists and ankles, securing me spread eagle to his bed. "Pine if you need to stop, but try to stay with the sensations, move through them rather than pulling back." I nodded, already feeling anticipation build. A pleasant haziness from the wine and his touch. He blindfolded me first, not the silk scarf from before, but a fitted leather mask that blocked all light, then noise-cancelling headphones that plunged me into silence broken only by the sound of my own breathing. Deprived of sight and sound, I focused inward on the feel of cool air on my skin, the slight tension in the cuffs, the rapid beating of my heart. The first touch startled me, something soft brushing across my breasts, my stomach, my thighs. Feathers, perhaps, or fur. Just when I'd adjusted to the sensation, it changed, warm drops of what might have been wax or oil, falling in random patterns across my skin. Not painful, but intense. Each drop a small shock of heat that faded to a pleasant warmth. James worked methodically, introducing new sensations one after another. The cool touch of metal against my heated skin, the subtle vibration of some device, tracing patterns on my body, the unexpected chill of ice, followed by the warmth of his mouth. Time lost meaning. I couldn't tell if minutes or hours had passed. My world narrowed to these sensations, to the building tension in my core, to the increasingly desperate need for release that James skillfully maintained but didn't satisfy. Somewhere in this haze of denied pleasure, something shifted. The part of me that had been cataloguing each sensation, anticipating what might come next, fell silent. In its place rose a profound surrender, just of my body, but of my mind, myself. I floated in this strange space, untethered from thought, from identity, aware only of the exquisite feelings washing through me. Distantly, I felt tears sliding from beneath the blindfold, not from pain or distress, but from the sheer overwhelm of sensation, of release. When James finally entered me, it was like coming home, a completion I hadn't known I was seeking. His movements were slow, deliberate, each thrust taking me higher into this otherworldly state. One hand rested gently on my throat, above the collar, the slight pressure grounding me even as I floated. Let go completely. His voice penetrated the headphones, the only sound in my silent world. Come for me, Elise. Now. The climax that swept through me was unlike anything I'd experienced, not just physical release, but something deeper. A breaking open of some inner barrier I hadn't known existed. I cried out, body arching against the restraints, tears flowing freely now. Somewhere in this shattering pleasure, I heard James's own release, felt him collapse beside me, felt the restraints loosen as he freed my limbs with trembling hands. The blindfold came off next, then the headphones. Light and sound returned gradually, James careful not to overwhelm my sensitized state. "Stay with me," he murmured, gathering me against his chest. "I've got you. You're safe." I clung to him, unable to speak, still floating in that strange, transcendent space. My body trembled with aftershocks, my mind slowly reassembling itself. "That's it," he soothed, stroking my hair, my back. "Come back to me slowly." Eventually, the room came back into focus, my sense of self reasserting gradually. I became aware of James watching me with an expression I'd never seen before, tender, almost reverent. "How do you feel?" he asked softly. I considered the question, trying to find words for what I'd experienced. Like I disappeared and found myself at the same time. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. "Is that normal?" "Yes." He kissed my forehead. "You reached subspace. I've never seen anything so beautiful." I touched his face, surprised to find it damp. "You're crying." "So are you," he said, with a gentle smile. I realized he was right. Tears still slid silently down my cheeks, though I felt no sadness, only a profound peace. "I didn't know it could be like that," I whispered. Neither did I. His admission surprised me. "I've guided others to subspace before, but this, double quotes, he shook his head slightly. This was different." "How?" He was quiet for a long moment, his hand still stroking my hair. "I felt it too," he finally said. "When you surrendered so completely, something in me surrendered as well." The confession hung between us, weighted with implications neither of us was ready to voice. Instead, I curled closer against him, letting his heartbeat lull me towards sleep. Just before I drifted off, I heard him whisper into my hair, "I'm falling in love with you, Elise." I wasn't sure if I was meant to hear it, if he even realized he'd spoken aloud. But the words followed me into dreams, wrapping around my heart. Like a promise, morning brought a strange new intimacy between us. James made breakfast, watching me with a softness I'd never seen before. Neither of us mentioned his whispered confession, but it hung in the air between us, altering everything. "I need to go to my apartment today," I said as we cleared the dishes. "Pick up more clothes, check my mail." "Of course." He hesitated. "Will you come back?" The uncertainty in his voice was new, touching. "Do you want me to?" "Yes." No hesitation. "This time, for as long as you'd like to stay." I smiled. "Then I'll come back." At my apartment, gathering more clothes and necessities, I found myself contemplating the shifts in our relationship. What had begun as a carefully negotiated physical arrangement had evolved into something much more complex, more meaningful. Was I falling in love with James? The thought was frightening in its plausibility. I'd sworn off serious relationships after Daniel, convinced I needed time alone. Yet here I was, practically living with a man I'd known for barely 2 months. But what a man. What a connection. My phone chimed with a text from Megan. Lunch. I need to see this glow everyone's talking about. I smiled. Can't today. Rain check. Fine. But you owe me details. Lots of them. Back at James's penthouse, I found him in his study, on a video call. He waved me in silently, wrapping up his meeting. Sorry about that, he said after disconnecting. Work crisis? No problem. I set my bag down. Everything okay? Just the usual corporate drama. He rose from his desk, coming to stand before me. I'm glad you came back. I said I would. He smiled, brushing my hair back from my face. I know, but I'm still glad. That evening, over dinner at an exclusive restaurant, where the staff greeted James by name, he seemed distracted, almost nervous. Is everything all right? I asked as our dessert was served. He set down his fork. There's something I'd like to ask you. My heart skipped. Okay. I've been invited to a private event next weekend. A gathering of ... like-minded individuals. Like-minded people in the lifestyle. Dominants and submissives. I blinked. A sex party. He smiled slightly. No. Though some attendees may engage in scenes, it's primarily social. A chance to connect with the community, exchange experiences, learn from others. And you want me to go with you? Yes. He reached for my hand across the table, as my submissive. The request surprised me. Our arrangement had been intensely private, just the two of us in his controlled environments. The thought of displaying our dynamic publicly made my stomach tighten with anxiety. What would that involve? Exactly. Nothing beyond your comfort level. You'd wear your collar openly. Follow certain protocols, addressing me and other dominants respectfully. Following my lead in conversations, asking permission for certain actions. Would we ... perform? For others, absolutely not. His voice was firm. I don't share, Elise. Not in any way. Relief washed through me. Then why go? Because I'm proud of what we've built together. Because I think you might benefit from meeting others who share your inclinations. Because ... double quotes, he paused. Because I want to be seen with you. The simple honesty of his last statement moved me. Still, uncertainty lingered. I don't know, James. It seems so ... exposing. It is, in a way, but also affirming. He squeezed my hand gently. Think about it. You don't need to decide tonight. Later, in bed, as we lay tangled together in the afterglow of lovemaking that had been notably more equal, less structured than our usual encounters, I found the courage to ask, what are we doing, James? Really, he propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at me seriously. What do you mean? This started as an arrangement. Clear boundaries, defined roles. But now it's more, he finished for me. Double quotes, yes. But what, exactly? He was quiet. For a long moment, tracing patterns on my bare shoulder. I'm not sure I have a name for it. All I know is that I want you in my life. Not just in my bed, not just as my submissive. In my life, as your girlfriend. The words seemed inadequately conventional for what we shared. As my partner, he corrected. In all things, the weight of his words settled over me. That's a significant change to our arrangement. Yes, what about the dominance and submission? That remains, if you want it to, but as an aspect of our relationship, not its definition. His eyes held mine. I fell in love with Elise, who surrenders to me in bed. Yes, but also with Elise, who challenges me over breakfast, who loses herself in books, who has a life and mind of her own. There it was, the word we'd been dancing around, love. I need time, I said finally, to process this. To be sure, of course. He kissed me gently. Take all the time you need. In the morning, I woke early, slipping from bed without waking James. In the kitchen, making coffee, I contemplated his request about the gathering. Part of me was curious, intrigued by the idea of meeting others who shared this part of myself I was still discovering. Another part recoiled at the public display, the formalization of a dynamic that felt intensely personal, and beneath it all ran the current of James's confession. His desire for something beyond our original parameters, something that looked remarkably like a future together. Did I want that? Was I ready? James found me on the balcony, coffee gone cold in my hands, lost in thought. "Morning," he said, joining me with his own steaming mug. "You're up early, couldn't sleep? Second thoughts?" I turned to him. "About us? No. About the event, maybe." He nodded, unsurprised. "Tell me what concerns you." "It feels like a statement, appearing publicly as your submissive. Like I'm declaring something about myself I'm still coming to terms with." "That's valid," he acknowledged. "It would be a step into a community, an identity that's still new to you, and what if I'm not ready for that? What if I never am?" His expression remained calm, but I saw a flicker of something disappointment, concern, in his eyes. "Then we continue as we have been, private, separate from the wider community. Would that be enough for you?" He considered the question seriously. "I believe in the value of community, of shared experiences and wisdom, but not at the cost of your comfort." He set his mug down. "What I'm not willing to compromise on is us, the connection we've built, even if I'm not ready to go public with it." Even then, he reached for my hand. "Though I hope someday you might be." His honesty was both reassuring and challenging. I realized he was asking me, in his way, to consider a future where our relationship wasn't just a private indulgence, but an acknowledged part of who we were separately and together. "I need to think," I said finally, "about the event, about everything. Take the time you need." He kissed my forehead. "I have meetings all day. Will you be here when I get back?" I hesitated, then decided, "No, I think I need a night in my own space, to clear my head." Something like worry crossed his face, quickly masked, of course. "Will you let me know when you're home safely?" "Yes." He nodded, accepting my need for distance, even as his eyes betrayed his concern. "I'll miss you." The simple admission made my throat tighten with unexpected emotion. "I'll miss you too." That evening, alone in my apartment, for the first time in over a week, I removed the collar I'd worn almost constantly since our arrangement began. The skin beneath was pale, marked by its absence. Like the collar itself, James had become a constant presence in my life, one I'd grown accustomed to, perhaps dependent on. Was that healthy? Was that what I wanted? I had no answers, only questions that kept me awake long into the night. 3 days passed. 3 days of sleeping alone in my own bed, of working in my quiet apartment, of examining every facet of my relationship with James. He respected my request for space, sending only brief, non-pressuring texts. "Thinking of you. Hope your day is going well. I'm here when you're ready to talk." Each message a reminder of his presence, without demanding a response. On the second night, restless and unable to sleep, I called Megan. Well, she answered. "The ghost returns. Sorry, I've been MIA. Let me guess, wrapped up in tall, dark, and expensive." I sighed. "Something like that. Can we meet for coffee? I need advice." An hour later, we sat in a late-night cafe, steaming mugs between us. "Okay," Megan said, stirring her latte. "Spill, and don't leave out the juicy parts." I hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "I've been seeing someone." The guy from the bar. Yeah. Gathered that, and Stinkle, quotes, are, ... intense, different from anything I've experienced before. Her eyebrows rose. Different how? Like weird kinks, different. Heat crept up my neck. Not weird, just ... structured. He likes control. Understanding dawned in her eyes. Oh, he's into that dominant stuff. Yes, and I'm into the other side of it. To her credit, Megan didn't laugh or judge. She simply nodded thoughtfully. And that's working for you. Incredibly well, I admitted. But now it's becoming more than that. He wants ... a relationship, a real one. And that's a problem because ... because I'm not sure I know who I am anymore. With him, I'm someone I never imagined being. Without him, I feel incomplete somehow. Megan studied me over her coffee. That just sounds like falling in love to me. Is it supposed to be this consuming, this fast? She shrugged. Some flames burn slow, some burn hot and fast. Doesn't mean either is wrong. Question is, are you happy? I considered this. Yes, happier than I've been in, maybe ever. Does he respect you? Your boundaries, your independence? Absolutely. He's almost obsessive about consent, about making sure I'm comfortable. Does he make you feel good about yourself? Not just physically, but as a person? Yes, I said, without hesitation. He sees things in me I never saw in myself. Strength in my surrender, power in my vulnerability. Megan reached across the table, squeezing my hand. Then what are you afraid of? The question hit me like a physical blow. What was I afraid of? Losing myself, I whispered. Becoming defined by this relationship, this dynamic, has he asked. You to give up anything. Your job, your friends, your interests. No. If anything, he encourages my independence outside our time together. Then maybe the problem isn't him, or even the relationship. Megan's eyes were kind, but direct. Maybe it's that you're discovering parts of yourself you didn't know existed, and that's scary. Her words stayed with me all the way home, echoing as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Was that it? Was I running not from James, but from my own evolving identity? The next morning, my editor's eye landed on the silver collar, still sitting in its velvet box on my dresser. A symbol, yes, but of what? Ownership, surrender, or perhaps, in its own way, of choice, my choice, to accept what James offered, to give what he asked for. I lifted it, feeling its weight in my hands. If I put it on again, what would that mean? If I left it off, what would I be rejecting? My phone chimed with a text. Not from James, but from my author, Mark. Just got the copy dits. You were right about chapter 12. Your suggestion made it so much stronger. Thank you for seeing what I couldn't. A small thing, a professional exchange, yet it reminded me of who. I was outside my relationship with James, an editor, a guide for other stories. Someone with skill and judgment valued in her own right. Could I be that person and also be James's submissive, his partner? The answer came with surprising clarity. Yes, because those weren't separate identities. They were facets of the same person. Me, complex, evolving, sometimes contradictory, but whole. I picked up my phone and texted James. Can we talk tonight? The response came immediately. Yes, my place or yours. I thought about it, then decided. Neutral ground. The bar where we met, 8 p.m. I'll be there, that evening. I dressed with Cara deep blue dress, similar to the one I'd worn the night we met. But with one addition, the silver collar around my throat, visible and deliberate. A statement of my choice. James was already at the bar when I arrived, in what might have been the same charcoal suit from that first night. When he saw me, saw the collar, his eyes darkened with an emotion I couldn't quite name. "Elise," he said, standing as I approached. "James," he gestured to the stool beside his, an echo of our first meeting. I sat, hyper-aware of his proximity, of the weight of the collar against my skin. "You've been thinking," he said. Not a question. "Yes." And I met his gaze directly. "I'm scared." His expression softened. "Of what?" "Of how much I want this. Want you, of how quickly you've become essential to me." "I understand." He didn't touch me, giving me the space to speak. "But I've realized something these past few days. The person I am with, Youth, is submissive. The woman who surrenders, she's not separate from the rest of me. She's always been there, waiting to be discovered." A small smile touched his lips. "I knew that the moment I saw you. You did, didn't you?" I shook my head slightly, marveling. "You saw something in me I couldn't see in myself." "I recognized it," he corrected. "Because I've spent years understanding my own nature." I touched the collar at my throat. "I'm wearing this tonight as a choice. My choice, because I want what it represents between us." "And what is that, to you?" "Trust," I said immediately. "Surrender, yes, but freely given. A gift, not an obligation." He nodded, his eyes never leaving mine. "And the event?" "My request." I took a deep breath. "I'll go with you. Not because you want me to, but because I'm ready to acknowledge this part of myself. To stand beside you publicly as well as privately." Relief and pleasure washed over his face. "Thank you. But James, there's something else we need to discuss." His expression grew serious again. "Go on, you said you love me." I watched his reaction carefully. "Did you mean it?" "Yes." No hesitation, no qualification. "I love you, Elise." The simple declaration made my heart race. "That changes things." "Does it have to?" "Yes," I said firmly. "Because I love you too. And love requires honesty." He waited, patient, letting me find my words. "I want this sus to continue. The dominance and submission, the exploration, all of it. But I also want more. I want mornings and evenings, arguments and reconciliations. Normalcy alongside the extraordinary relationship," he said. "Yes, a real one, with all its complications. Not just an arrangement." James reached across the small distance between us, taking my hand. "That's what I want to, Elise. That's what I've been trying to tell you. Even if it means renegotiating our boundaries. Finding a balance between your control and my independence. Especially then." He squeezed my hand. "What we have is too important to be confined to the bedroom or the playroom. I want all of you, Elise. The submissive and the strong-willed editor. The woman who kneels for me and the one who stands her ground when it matters." Something tight in my chest loosened at his words. "So where do we go from here?" "Home," he said simply. "Together. To talk, to plan, to figure out what this evolving relationship looks like for us." "Home," I repeated. "Your place or mine." His smile deepened. "I was thinking perhaps ... ours, eventually." The implication stole my breath. "Are you asking me to move in with you? Not tonight, not tomorrow, but soon, when you're ready." His thumb traced circles on my palm. "I don't want temporary anymore, Elise. I want to build something lasting with you." The enormity of what he was offering, not just kinky sex or dominant submissive play, but a shared life, made my eyes sting with unexpected tears. "Yes," I whispered. "That's what I want to." Lifted my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles. "Then let's go home and start figuring out how to make it happen." As we left the bar, his hand at the small of my back, I felt a profound sense of rightness, of coming full circle. 2 months ago, I had walked out of this same bar with a stranger, seeking only temporary oblivion. Now I left with a partner, a lover, a man who saw all of me and wanted everything I had to give. The collar around my throat was no longer just a symbol of submission. It had become a bridge between who I had been and who I was becoming, a woman strong enough to surrender, brave enough to love, wise enough to know the difference between losing herself and finding herself in another's arms. The event James had invited me to arrived faster than expected. A private gathering in an elegant townhouse owned by a friend of his, a fellow dominant named Richard, who, James explained, was something of a mentor to him in his early explorations of the lifestyle. Nervous, James asked as our car approached, "The address?" He looked immaculate in a tailored black suit, a contrast to my deep burgundy dress, high-necked in front, nearly backless behind, with the silver collar clearly visible at my throat. "Yes," I admitted. "What if I do something wrong? Break some protocol I don't know about?" He took my hand, squeezing gently. "You won't. Just stay close to me. Follow my lead. If you're unsure, ask. No one will judge you for being new. And if I want to leave, then we leave, immediately." His eyes held mine. "This is about experiencing the community, Elise, not testing your limits. Your comfort is paramount." His reassurance calmed me somewhat, though my heart still raced as we approached the front door. A discreet security guard checked our names against a list, then ushered us inside. The interior was tastefully opulent hardwood floors, antique furniture, soft lighting. About 30 people mingled in the main room, dressed in elegant evening wear. At first glance, it could have been any upscale cocktail party. Then I noticed the details. The collars on some attendees, similar to mine but in various designs. The subtle dynamics between certain pairs, one clearly deferential, the other commanding. The way conversations paused briefly, assessing us as we entered. James's hand found the small of my back, a gentle pressure guiding me forward. "Richard." He greeted a distinguished-looking older man who approached us. "Thank you for the invitation, James. So glad you could make it." Richard's gaze shifted to me, curious but not invasive. "And this must be Elise." "Yes," James confirmed. "Elise, this is Richard Blake." I extended my hand. "Pleased to meet you." Richard shook it warmly. "The pleasure is mine. James has spoken highly of you." I glanced at James, surprised. "You've discussed me." "In general terms," James assured me. "Richard and I have known each other for many years." "James was quite insistent on bringing you tonight," Richard said with a smile. Quite a departure from his usual solitary appearances. A waiter approached with champagne. James took 2 glasses, handing one to me. "May I?" he asked Richard, indicating I should drink. Richard nodded. And I realized this was one of the protocols James had mentioned, seeking permission from our host before certain actions. "Please, enjoy yourselves," Richard said. "Mingle, observe. The playrooms upstairs are open to participants and observers, though I understand you may prefer to watch rather than participate your first time." "Thank you," James said. "We'll explore." As Richard moved to greet other guests, I leaned closer to James. "Playrooms, areas set up for scenes," he explained quietly. "Nothing is required or expected of us. We're here to observe, to give you a glimpse of the wider community." Throughout the evening, James introduced me to several couples and individuals. Some were professional acquaintances of Hissa, neurologist, and her submissive husband, a corporate lawyer who served as a dominant to his much younger partner. Others were friends he'd made through the community over the years. I was struck by how normal they all seemed outside their dynamics, intelligent, articulate people with successful careers and varied interests. It demystified the lifestyle in a way that all my research hadn't. "Would you like to observe a scene?" James asked after we'd been there about an hour. "You don't have to. It's entirely your choice." Curiosity won over apprehension. "Yes, I think I would." He led me upstairs to a large room set up with various equipment items I recognized from my research and others that were unfamiliar. Several scenes were in progress, each with clear boundaries and observers maintaining respectful distances. We watched a dominant woman demonstrating rope techniques on her male submissive, the intricate patterns transforming restraint into art. In another corner, a dominant man administered careful strikes with a flogger to his partner's back, each impact followed by a visible release of tension in the submissive's body. "What do you think?" James asked quietly, standing behind me, his hands resting lightly on my shoulders. "It's beautiful," I said, surprising myself with the word choice. "The connection between them, the trust." "Yes." His voice was warm with approval. "That's exactly what it is. Beautiful." As we continued to observe, I found myself drawn not to the technical aspects of the scenes, but to the emotional exchanges, the care in the dominant's eyes, the peaceful surrender on the submissive's faces, the attentive aftercare that followed each scene. "This is what you wanted me to see," I realized aloud. "Not just the activities, but the relationships." James nodded. "The outside world often focuses on the physical aspects, the pain, the restraint, the power exchange. But at its core, this lifestyle is about connection. Deep, authentic connection." Later, as we prepared to leave, Richard approached us once more. "Your first time at such a gathering," he said to me. "May I ask your impressions?" I considered the question carefully. It was educational. Not what I expected. In what way? "It's less about sex and more about ... communication, trust, understanding yourself and your partner on a profound level." Richard smiled, clearly pleased with my response. "Precisely. The physical aspects are merely expressions of that deeper connection." He glanced at James. "You've found someone insightful, my friend." "I know," James said, his hand warm against my back in the car heading home. I leaned against James's shoulder, processing the evening. "Thank you," I said, "for showing me that world. Thank you for being willing to see it." He kissed the top of my head. "What did you think?" "Honestly, I thought I might feel out of place or uncomfortable, but I didn't. Everyone was so ... respectful, so conscious of boundaries and consent." I looked up at him. "It made me understand better what we have, what you've given me, what we've given each other," he corrected gently. Back at his penthouse or home for the past week, since our reconciliation, James helped me out of my dress with careful hands, unfastened my collar, and drew a bath for us both. As we soaked in the warm, scented water, his arms around me, I felt a contentment I'd never known before. "I have something to ask you," he said, his lips against my temple. Move in with me, officially." I turned to look at him. "You're sure?" "Completely." His eyes were serious. "I want to build a life with you, Elise. Day by day, moment by moment." The certainty in his voice, the love in his eyes, made the decision easy. "Yes," I said. "I'd like that very much." His smile was like sunrise. "When?" "Soon," I promised. "Give me a month to sublet my apartment, sort through my things." A month it is. He sealed the agreement with a kiss that tasted of promise, of future, of home. Later, in bed, our lovemaking had a new quality, neither the structured dominance and submission of our scenes, nor the careful exploration of new lovers, but something deeper. A true joining, equal in vulnerability, if not in control. As I drifted toward sleep in his arms, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. From one night that became something more, to a collar that symbolized not ownership but belonging, to a love I hadn't been looking for but had found nonetheless. "What are you thinking?" James murmured, his fingers tracing patterns on my bare shoulder. "That I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be," I answered truthfully. His arms tightened around me. "Yes, you are." The weeks passed in a blur of contentment and plans. I gave notice on my apartment, sorted through possessions accumulated over years, deciding what to keep and what to discard. James cleared space in his closets, his bookshelves, his life making room for me, not just physically but emotionally. "What about this?" he asked one evening, holding up a framed photo of Daniel and me from a vacation 2 years prior. I considered it briefly. "Recycling. The frame is nice, though," he nodded, removing the photo and adding the empty frame to the keep pile. "No jealousy, no insecurity. Just practical assistance in dismantling my old life to build our new one." The night before I officially moved in, James took me to dinner at an exclusive restaurant overlooking the city. Champagne, candlelight, quiet conversation about nothing important, just being together, savoring the moment. "I have something for you," he said as dessert arrived. "A housewarming gift, of sorts." He placed a small velvet box beside my plate, larger than a ring box, smaller than the one that had held my collar. "Open it," he encouraged. Inside lay a key on a silver chain, modern electronic, similar to the one James used for his private elevator. "It's to the club," he explained. "The private rooms on the top floor. I've had one designed for us, for our scenes." I lifted the key, feeling its weight. "A playroom, a space that's ours, equipped with everything we've explored, and things we haven't yet." His eyes held mine across the table. "You'll have full access, anytime." The significance of the gift wasn't lost on me. This wasn't just practical, it was symbolic. James was literally giving me the key to his most private world. "Thank you," I said, emotion making my voice husky. "It's perfect. There's one more thing." He reached across the table for my hand. "Tomorrow, after you've moved in, I want to try something we haven't done before. If you're willing." "What did you have in mind?" "Complete surrender," he said softly. "Not just your body, not just your mind, but your heart. And in return, I'll give you mine." I swallowed, understanding what he was offering, not just another scene, but a deeper level of vulnerability from us both. "Yes," I whispered. "I want that." The next day was a flurry of activity movers, bringing my remaining possessions to James's penthouse. Unpacking, arranging, integrating my life with his. By evening, exhausted but happy, we ordered takeout and collapsed on the sofa, surveying our now shared home. "How does it feel?" James asked, his arm around my shoulders. "Being here officially." "Right," I said simply. "Like I've found where I belong." His smile was warm, tender. "You have." After dinner, he led me to the bedroom hour. Bedroom now where candles flickered on every surface, casting a golden glow over the space. "Tonight is special," he said, turning to face me. "Different from our other scenes." "How?" "No restraints. No toys, no dominance techniques." His hands framed my face gently. "Just us, raw and real." "I thought you wanted complete surrender," I said, confused. "I do. But not to my control. To us, to what we've become together." Understanding dawned. This wasn't about dominance and submission in the physical sense. This was about emotional surrender, making ourselves completely vulnerable to each other. "I'm a little scared," I admitted. "So am I." His honesty was touching. "But I trust you with my heart, Elise. Do you trust me with yours?" Yes, I whispered, completely. He kissed me, then soft reverent. His hands moved to the buttons of my blouse, undoing them slowly. I responded in kind, unbuttoning his shirt, revealing the skin beneath. We undressed each other with deliberate care, no rush, no urgency. When we were both naked, James led me to the bed, laying me down among the pillows, then stretching out. Beside me, I want to see you, he said, his eyes never leaving mine. All of you, not just your body, but what's inside. Your fears, your hopes, your truths. How? I asked, my voice barely audible. Tell me, he said simply. Tell me what you've never told anyone else, and I'll do the same. And so began the most intimate exchange of my life. Not sex, though, that would come later, but confession, revelation, the stripping away of pretenses and defenses until we lay bare before each other. Not just physically, but emotionally. I told him about my childhood fears, my adult insecurities, about the time I'd betrayed a friend's confidence and never forgiven myself, about my secret dream of writing my own book someday but being too afraid of failure to try. He shared his own truths, the weight of expectations from wealthy parents who measured love in achievements, the relationships he'd sabotaged out of, fear of vulnerability, the constant struggle to balance his dominant nature with his desire for true connection. Each confession brought us closer, each revelation more intimate than the last. Tears came his mine, shared as we recognized in each other the same human frailty, the same courage in facing it. When words finally gave way to touch, it was with a new awareness, a deeper understanding. Every caress acknowledged not just the body beneath our hands, but the soul we'd been entrusted with. James's dominance emerged, not in commands or control, but in his focused attention, his unwavering presence. My submission manifested not in obedience, but in openness, in willingness to be fully seen and known. When he entered me, it felt like completion, like the physical expression of the emotional union we'd already achieved. We moved together slowly, maintaining eye contact, breathing in unison, climbing toward release with deliberate, shared intention. I love you, he whispered as we approached the edge. All of you, exactly as you are. I love you, I echoed, the words carrying the weight of everything we'd shared, every part of you. Our climax, when it came, was simultaneous. Profound, a physical manifestation of the emotional surrender we'd given each other. I cried out his name, he whispered mine, our bodies pulsing together in perfect harmony. Afterward, lying in his arms, sweat cooling on our skin, I felt altered on a cellular level. Something fundamental had shifted between us, within us. That, James said softly, is what I've been searching for my entire life. What? I asked, tracing patterns on his chest. Someone I can be completely myself with. No masks, no roles, just me, accepted fully. I raised my head to look at him. Even without the dominance. The dominance is part of me, he said, but it's not all of me. Tonight, you saw all of me, and you're still here, always, I promised. I'm not going anywhere. He kissed me, tender and reverent. Neither am I. We fell asleep tangled together, the boundaries between dominant and submissive, between his space and mine, between past and future, dissolved in the certainty of what we'd found together. In the morning, I woke first, watching James sleep, his face relaxed, vulnerable in repose. The man who controlled so much, who planned so carefully, surrendered completely to sleep beside me, trusting me with his unconscious self. When his eyes opened, finding mine immediately, his smile was like sunrise. Good morning, he murmured. Good morning, I kissed him softly. First day of our official cohabitation. How shall we celebrate? I grinned, sliding my hand down his chest. I have some ideas. Later, over breakfast on the balcony, James said casually, I've been thinking about the collar. My hand went instinctively to my throat. Bare this morning. What about it? Its meaning has evolved, hasn't it? From when I first gave it to you, I nodded. It started as a symbol of an arrangement. Now it's ... more. Much more. He reached across the table for my hand. I'd like to give you a new one. To mark this new chapter. My heart skipped. A new collar. Something that reflects what we've become to each other. Partners, lovers, still dominant and submissive when we choose, but equals in commitment. The thoughtfulness of the gesture moved me deeply. I'd like that. Good. He squeezed my hand. Because I've already commissioned it. The certainty in his voice made me laugh. Pretty confident I'd say yes. His smile was both tender and mischievous. I've learned to read your responses quite accurately, Elise. Yes, I agreed, thinking of the night before, of the profound connection we'd forged. You certainly have. 3 months into our life together, James surprised me with a weekend trip to his coastal home. Winter had given way to spring, and the ocean view was transformed with sunlight dancing on gentler waves, wildflowers dotting the cliff path. It's beautiful here, I said, as we walked along the beach Saturday morning, hand in hand. Different from last time. Seasons changed, James replied, squeezing my fingers. Things evolve. There was something in his tone, slight tension, an undercurrent of anticipation. He'd been like this all morning, just a fraction more intense than usual. Is everything all right? I asked, stopping to face him. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Yes, just ... Thinking about tonight. What's happening tonight? Something I've been planning. He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. Something important. I studied his face, trying to read the emotions there. Should I be worried? No. This time his smile was genuine. Not at all. Just be ready at sunset. Wear something comfortable but elegant. All day, curiosity gnawed at me. James was typically forthcoming about his plans, especially when they involved us. This secretiveness was unusual, making me both excited and slightly anxious. By sunset, I was dressed as instructed in a simple white sundress that James particularly liked and waiting in the living room. When he emerged from the bedroom, he'd changed as well, into linen pants and a loose white shirt that made his tanned skin look even darker. You look beautiful, he said, taking my hand. Come with me. He led me down the path to the beach, where I was surprised to find a small set-up blanket spread on the sand. Cushions arranged comfortably, a bottle of champagne chilling in an ice bucket. Candles and hurricane lamps created a warm glow as daylight faded. What's all this? I asked, genuinely touched by the romantic gesture. Sit with me, he said, guiding me to the blanket. We settled among the cushions, facing the ocean as the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. James poured champagne into 2 glasses, handing one to me. His hand was steady, but I noticed a slight tension in his shoulders, an intensity in his gaze. Elise, he began, his voice lower than usual. These past months with you have been ... transformative. My heart quickened. For me too. You know, I've had arrangements before. Relationships defined by dominance and submission. He took a breath. But never like this. Never where the lines blurred so beautifully between the dynamic and ... real life, real love. I set my glass down, suddenly aware that something significant was happening. James, let me finish, he said gently. Please. I nodded, waiting. You came into my life expecting one night. I offered you an arrangement. But what we've found together is so much more. He reached into his pocket, withdrawing not a ring box as I'd half expected, but a small carved wooden container. I want to show you something I've never shown anyone before. He opened the box, revealing what appeared to be a simple leather bracelet, handcrafted elegant in its simplicity. This is a submissive's bracelet, he explained. In some traditions, it symbolizes the dominant's commitment to the relationship, a physical reminder of their responsibilities. I looked at him, confused. I don't understand. Tonight, he said, his voice steady despite the vulnerability in his eyes. I want to give you a gift I've never given anyone, my submission. The words hung between us, unexpected, weighted with significance. Your ... submission. Yes, he held my gaze, unwavering. One night where our roles are reversed, where I surrender to you completely. I stared at him, stunned by the offer. But you're a dominant. It's who you are. It's part of who I am, he corrected. But not all, and my trust in you, my love for you, is greater than my need for control. He held out the bracelet. If you're willing to accept this gift. I looked from the bracelet to his face, seeing there a vulnerability that moved me deeply. Are you sure? Completely. He placed the bracelet in my palm, closing my fingers around it. I trust you with all of me, Elise, not just the strong parts. The controlling parts, but the soft places too. The vulnerable ones. Emotion tightened my throat. I don't know how to be a dominant. A small smile touched his lips. You don't need to be. Just be yourself, the strong, confident woman I fell in love with. Trust your instincts. I looked down at the bracelet in my hand, feeling its weight physical and symbolic. What if I do something wrong? You won't. His faith in me was unwavering. But if you need it, I offer you the same safety I've always insisted on for you. A safe word, Pine, I asked. He shook his head. For tonight, James, if either of us says it, we stop. No questions asked. I nodded, understanding the significance his name as the safe word. A reminder that beneath any roles we played, he remained himself, just as I remained myself in my submission. All right, I said finally. I accept your gift. Relief and something like anticipation washed over his face. He extended his wrist to me. Then claim me, Elise. For tonight, I am yours to command. With trembling fingers, I fastened the bracelet around his wrist. The simple act felt ceremonial, weighted with meaning. Now what? I asked. Whatever you desire. His voice was soft, surrendered. I am yours. Power, different kind than I'd experienced in submission, flowed through me. Not the power over another, but the power of being entrusted with something precious, something vulnerable. Stand up, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. James complied immediately, rising to his feet before me. I stood as well, studying him in the fading light. This man who had controlled me, guided me, taught me so much about pleasure and surrender, now offering himself to me in return. Take off your shirt, I instructed, finding confidence in his willing obedience. He unbuttoned his linen shirt slowly, maintaining eye contact as he slipped it from his shoulders. The sight of his bare chest, familiar territory now, but somehow new in this context, sent heat coursing through me. Now, I said, stepping closer, kiss me, but don't touch me otherwise. Keep your hands at your sides. James leaned down, pressing his lips to mine with exquisite gentleness. The restraint in his posture, the tension of holding back, was palpably incredibly arousing. When he pulled back, his eyes were darker, pupils dilated with desire. Follow me, I said, turning toward the house, in the bedroom, candles already lit part of his planning. I realized Di faced him again. Something was building between us, an energy unlike anything we'd shared before. Remove the rest of your clothes, I directed. Slowly. He obeyed, undressing with deliberate movements, never breaking eye contact. When he stood naked before me, I circled him slowly, admiring the body I knew so well, yet saw anew through these reversed roles. "Lie on the bed," I said, "arms above your head." Again, immediate compliance. James positioned himself as instructed, the leather bracelet stark against his skin, his body open and vulnerable to my gaze. I removed my dress, then joined him on the bed, straddling his hips without allowing full contact. His breathing quickened, but he remained still, waiting for my next command. What followed was a revelation, James surrendering completely to my touch, my pace, my desires. I explored his body with new authority, discovering sensitive places I'd never fully appreciated before. I teased him to the edge of release, then drew back, learning firsthand the power of controlled denial he'd wielded so skillfully with me. Throughout, I watched his face, the struggle for restraint, the pleasure bordering on pain, the beautiful vulnerability of a man accustomed to control, now giving it up willingly. When I finally allowed him release, guiding him inside me and setting a pace that brought us both to the edge, his eyes never left mine even as pleasure overwhelmed him. Even as he called out my name in surrender, afterward, holding him as he trembled slightly in the aftermath, I understood something profound about our dynamic, about love itself. True strength wasn't in controlling or being controlled, but in the willing exchange of vulnerability, in the trust required to be completely seen, completely known. "Thank you," James whispered against my hair, "for accepting my gift." I kissed his chest, just above his heart. "Thank you for trusting me with it." Later, as midnight approached, I unfastened the bracelet from his wrist, symbolically ending our role reversal. "How do you feel?" I asked, curling against him. "Lighter," he said thoughtfully. "Seen in a way I've never been before." "I think I understand you better now," I admitted. "The responsibility of holding someone else's pleasure, their vulnerability." He nodded. "It's a sacred trust, one you've honored beautifully with me." His arms tightened around me. "And you, with me, tonight." We fell silent, listening to the waves crashing on the beach below, the rhythm as eternal and unchanging as the new understanding between us. "Will we do this again?" I asked finally. "If you wish it." He kissed my forehead. "Though my nature remains primarily dominant, and mine primarily submissive," I agreed. "But it's good to know we can cross those boundaries, that our connection transcends roles." "That's what I wanted you to see," he said softly. "That beneath the dominance and submission were simply James and Elise, loving each other, trusting each other, completely." In that moment, wrapped in his arms, the ocean singing its ancient lullaby outside our window, I knew with absolute certainty that what we'd found together was rare and precious, a connection that honored our individual natures while transcending them, a love built on the foundation of complete surrender. His to me, mine to him, both of us to the bond we'd created. "I love you," I whispered into the darkness. "And I love you," he replied, his voice carrying the weight of everything we'd shared, everything we'd become together, always. 1 year after that night at the Bearer, year of discovery, growth, and deepening love, James woke me with gentle kisses trailing across my shoulder. "Happy anniversary," he murmured against my skin. I smiled, still half asleep. "Anniversary, 1 year since you first came home with me, since our lives changed." Turning in his arms, I kissed him properly. "I hadn't realized you kept track of the date." "I remember everything about that night," he said, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. "The black dress you wore, the way you looked at me across the bar. How beautiful you were in surrender, even then. Even before I knew what surrender meant," I said softly. "You knew." His eyes held mine. "You just hadn't named it yet." We spent the morning in bed, making love slowly, savoring each other with the familiarity of long-term lovers and the passion that had never dimmed between us. When we finally rose, James suggested breakfast at our favorite cafe, followed by a walk in the park. The day was perfect, crisp autumn air, leaves turning gold and crimson, sunlight dappling through the canopy above us. As we walked hand in hand along familiar paths, I reflected on the journey of the past year. "Penny for your thoughts," James said, squeezing my fingers gently. "I was just thinking about everything that's changed. Who I was when we met, who I am now, and who are you now?" he asked, curious. I considered the question seriously. Braver, more certain of what I want, more comfortable in my own skin. I looked up at him, happier than I've ever been. His smile was warm, tender. "That's all I've ever wanted for you. And you?" I asked. "How have you changed?" "I'm more open," he said after a moment's reflection, "less guarded. I've learned that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the foundation of true connection." We stopped at a small footbridge over a stream, watching the water flow beneath us. James seemed contemplative, almost nervous, unusual for him. "Is everything all right?" I asked. "Yes." He turned to face me fully. "More than all right. I have something to ask you, Elise." My heart skipped. "What is it?" He reached into his pocket, withdrawing a small velvet box, darker than the one that had held my collar, more traditional in shape. "This past year has taught me what love truly means," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "Not possession or control, but partnership, trust, mutual surrender to something greater than ourselves." He opened the box, revealing not a conventional engagement ring, but a delicate platinum band, inset with small diamonds. From it hung a tiny silver key. "This isn't a traditional proposal," he continued, "because what we have isn't a traditional relationship. It's deeper, more honest, more complete." I stared at the ring, understanding its symbolism, the key representing both the collar he'd given me and the surrender he'd offered in return. "The key works," he said softly. "It's to a safe deposit box containing the deed to the coastal house. I've had it transferred to both our names." Tears welled in my eyes. "James, I'm not asking you to be my wife in the conventional sense," he said, taking my hand. "I'm asking you to continue being my partner in all things, my equal in commitment, if not always in role, the one I surrender to, even as you surrender to me." He removed the ring from its box, holding it before me. "Will you accept this promise, Elise? To build a life together on our own terms, honoring both who we are individually and what we've become together." The question hung between us, waited, with meaning beyond traditional vows. This wasn't just about marriage, but about embracing the unique dynamic we'd created, a love that incorporated dominance and submission without being defined by it. "Yes," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "Yes, I accept." James slipped the ring onto my finger, then lifted my hand to his lips, kissing the spot where metal met skin. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what?" "For seeing me, all of me, for accepting both the strength and the vulnerability, for surrendering without losing yourself, and allowing me to do the same." I touched his face gently. "That's what love is, isn't it? Seeing someone completely and loving them anyway." "All of them, yes," he agreed. "That's exactly what it is." We sealed the promise with a kiss there on the bridge, autumn leaves swirling around us like nature's blessing on our unconventional union. That evening, back at our penthouse, James presented me with one final gift, new collar to replace the original silver one I'd worn for so long. This one was platinum to match my ring, delicately crafted, with a small key charm that echoed the one on my ring. "The old collar represented an arrangement," he said, as he fastened it around my throat. "This one represents a commitment." equal, mutual, entered into with full awareness of what it means. I touched the metal at my throat, feeling its weight substantial but not heavy, significant but not binding. Like our relationship itself. It's beautiful, I said. Perfect. There's an inscription, James said, on the inside. I unfastened it carefully, turning it to read the delicate words engraved on the inner surface: strength in surrender, freedom in trust. Our paradox, I murmured, recognizing the truth of us captured in those simple words, the foundation of everything. We've built, he agreed, taking the collar and refastening it around my neck. His fingers lingered there, a gentle possessiveness that still thrilled me after all this time. That night, our lovemaking had elements of both dominance and equality, James, guiding me as he always had, but with a new awareness between us, a deeper understanding of the gift we gave each other in our respective roles. In the quiet afterward, lying in his arms, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. From that first night a stranger's commanding voice telling me to close my eyes to this moment of profound connection and commitment. "What are you thinking?" James asked, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my bare shoulder. "About choices," I said. "How one decision can change everything. Your decision to come home with me that night. That, and my decision to open the package with the collar, to put it on, to come back to you." I shifted to look at him in the dim light. So many moments when I could have chosen differently, but you didn't. No. I smiled, touching his face gently. Somehow I knew, even before I understood what we could be together. Something in me recognized you, recognized this possibility. He caught my hand, pressing a kiss to my palm. I knew the moment I saw you. Across that bar, not the details, not how it would unfold, but that you were someone significant. Someone who could match me, match you. I raised an eyebrow, even as you're submissive. "Especially then," he said seriously. "True submission requires tremendous strength, Elise. The courage to surrender, to trust, to be vulnerable. That's not weakness. It's one of the most powerful things I've ever witnessed." His words warmed me, affirming what I'd come to understand through our journey together. My submission wasn't about being less, but about choosing to give myself fully a gift that required confidence, trust, and profound self-knowledge. "And your dominance," I said, "isn't about control for its own sake. No, it's about creating a space where surrender is possible. Safe, transformative." He pulled me closer. "It's about being worthy of the gift you give me." We fell silent, content in each other's arms, the city lights twinkling beyond our windows. The world outside continued its hectic pace, unaware of the quiet revolution that had transformed to lives within these walls. "So what happens now?" I asked eventually. "Where do we go from here?" James smiled, a hint of his familiar, commanding presence returning. "Wherever we choose. Together." "I like the sound of that," I murmured, nestling closer as sleep began to claim me. I felt James press a kiss to my forehead, heard him whisper against my skin, "Thank you for saying yes." That first night, and every time since. "Thank you for asking," I replied softly, "for seeing in me something I didn't see in myself." His arms tightened around me, secure and loving. In that embrace, I found everything I hadn't known I was searching for: safety without confinement, surrender without loss of self, love without compromise of essence. I was still learning, still surrendering, but now I knew that giving yourself fully doesn't mean weakness. It means knowing your own power. And in James's arms, wearing his collar and his ring, I had never felt more powerful, more myself, more complete. The choice I'd made a year ago to follow a stranger home, to explore desires I'd barely acknowledged had led me here, to this moment of perfect clarity and belonging, to a love that honored all parts of me, that celebrated the complexity of desire and commitment to a future built on the paradox we'd discovered together, that in the right hands, with the right heart, surrender is the ultimate freedom.